items that we are gonna go over. One is gonna be the required taxpayer impact statement, and then our three fund balances, fund budgets that is local policy and legal policy to get approved. Okay, so our taxpayer impact statement, this went into law September 1st, 2025. We are now required by the Texas Government Code to present the statement, and it provides an estimate comparison of the Judson ISD taxes imposed on the median residential homestead. So you have that for this current tax year, 2025, at $118,230, and then for our next tax year, $110,000. That's simply taking the median residential property value and subtracting the $140,000 homestead amount. Then you see our tax rate at 96 cents. And for next tax year, that household will pay taxes to Judson ISD for $1,077.50 annually at that tax rate. Okay, we're going to start first with our general operating fund balance to go through it. Before I begin going through it, I'd like to give thanks to the whole district. This is not just something that we put together, the cabinet with Dr. J and Mo Casey. It takes everybody to help us with this. Department directors, their secretaries, all of y'all, principals, y'all came to central office with your secretaries, bookkeepers, and we really appreciate that. And give a big thanks to our finance team, our business team, and our system analysts for gathering all this information. We appreciate it. So let me go through the budget. We have revenues coming in at $239.8 million. And then our expenditures, keep in mind that these expenditures include both payroll and non-payroll, at $246 million, giving us a deficit of $6.1 million. We project on July 1st, 2026, our fund balance will be $50.6 million, and our projected ending fund balance for next year, June 30th, 2027, will be at $44.4 million. Keep in mind that this is just a projection between budgeted revenues and budgeted expenditures. This is not an actual account. As we go through the year, we will have a balanced budget, and we will make that deficit go to zero, possibly even surplus. Okay, going to the next slide or next page, we're showing where our revenue and expenditure comes from and what it's put into, spent more on. So majority of our revenue comes from the state, and the second largest portion is the blue, which is local. That's taxes, earned interest, other items like that. And then our expenditures right here, you can see that the blue piece of the pie is 63%, and that comes from instruction. And the second one being maintenance and operations at 11%. Okay. Next fund account that needs to be board approved is our child nutrition account. Once again, I'd like to thank our child nutrition department. They do a great job with keeping this self-sustained. And so you have 19.3 million revenue coming in, majority of it is federal funds. And then you have our expenditures at 19.8, giving us a small deficit of 480,000, but still keeping a healthy fund balance to sustain on its own. Reason being is that federal funds have decreased, and inflation has brought up the cost of food and non-food supplies up. Okay, last account, fund account that needs to get approved by the board is our debt service fund, also known as our interest and sinking fund. It is a balanced budget. We're seeing that majority of our revenue comes from tax collections at 41 million, and the rest from the state. And we have enough funds to pay our debt service at 53.8 million, leaving us a balanced budget and a healthy fund balance at 45.2 million. Means that we are paying bills on time and have enough to cover that. And that is the end of our public meeting on the proposed budget. I stand for any public questions or comments.
Okay, I think we'll just go up and down here.
The public is supposed to be asking now.
Is it the public first or the board? Okay, does anybody here, anybody have any questions? I believe there's a mic set up right over here in the front.
Where is it?
Oh, go ahead.
Use this one. Okay.
Okay, so last year, JSD conducted 51 behavioral threat assessments across 30 campuses. There were 12 campuses that had 0 behavioral threat assessments, including Judson Middle School. Judson Middle had dozens of serious disciplinary incidents, yet 0 behavioral threat assessments. So what I'm asking—
Ms. Wickwire, does this have to do with the budget?
It does, yes. How will the district ensure that students who need intervention are still being identified? Because the budget, there's less money being spent on guidance and counseling and social work.
So in terms of the proposed budget and the revenues that we have, and the budgetary items based on staffing for those different areas have been based on allocations that we need within the district to accommodate the students that we have enrolled in the district. The operational budgets that we have within all of our different categories, whether it's guidance and counseling, school leadership, all of those funds are based on budgets that have been submitted by the directors of those departments. One of the things that we did when we put the budget into place and we began planning for that was to ensure that we did not eliminate any programming from the district so that we could maintain the same types of programs that we had in the past. I know we have done, Ms. Stanford has done a lot of work this year with the ad hoc committee, as well as I believe Ms. Jones is on that committee. And we are working in terms of that with the district. In addition, the funds that we have that will go towards those services, we still have many grants associated with our social work and our counseling that are also being applied. And at present, the related budget that we have is here to support the existing programs of Judson ISD, and we have not eliminated any of those programs, which would include anything related to bullying or VTA assessments or safety and security of our students.
Has anything been added then?
We have not added additional programs. However, all of the programs that we have are compliant with law, and it is also compliant with what is needed in order to accommodate the students that we have within the district.
What does success look like in those programs? Like, is it lower numbers, or like how do you determine like return on investment type of thing?
One of the things that we're addressing tonight as part of the budget is that the fact that all the departments that are on here with their function expenditures were met with to determine how we're going to be able to support our students. And absolutely, I understand your concern and I understand your expectation on how we need to support our students. And those conversations are taking place and have been taking place. And we're in the process, when we begin this next fiscal year, is taking a look at making sure we audit our programs to make sure we're supporting our students and our staff the way they need to be so we can be successful. We need to do better than we did, and we're committed to doing that.
Thank you.
Anybody else like to say
Sir.
that? Mr. Patch?
I just want to clarify a couple things here, but we're still showing a $6 million deficit. But I remember at the board meeting on the 8th that you talked about us coming in under budget historically, like around 97%. So that means we probably recover about 3%. Is that why we're looking at it this way? So we should get like about $8 million recovered to cover the $6 million and put $2 more million back in our coffers or into our fund balance. Is that what we're looking at? I just want to clarify it because it's not up here. Nobody said anything about it.
Absolutely, and I would be glad to address that. One of the things we talked about was the first point that we want to address in our budget deficit as we work through our budget was our fund balance. And we talked about in our budget presentations the loss of $71.7 million in our fund balance over the last 4 years and what caused that loss, and that was the over expenditures and the things that were 91% personnel costs. And so as we were able to build those personnel costs down, our goal was to get to 84%. And as we went from 91 to 84% in personnel, the first thing we were able to do was, in this process, to get our fund balance to 50 million. And when you can see up there, it says our fund balance right now as of 7/1/26 is going to be 50 million and change. And so that 50 million number that's where we start. We can't touch that because that's 75 days of operating expenses. So then the next thing we do is, how do we address the 6,143,000, because we don't want to take any money out of our fund balance. So historically, the district, which we presented in our former and past budget presentations, from 2016 to 2026, the district has never spent more than 97% of its budget. We've always left budget on the table. Now, those other additional expenses that made us use our fund balance was because we were so far overstaffed that even those expenses, we had to continue to go in our fund balance, and those 3% that was left over was vacant positions that weren't filled.
Okay, so it's really the same thing you brought up on the 8th, that just didn't get mentioned during this. Okay.
Yes, sir. So as we're going through the budget presentation, you made a really good point. Right now, we have a 6,143,747 deficit, okay? But we're only spending 97% of our budget. So that 3% that we left over is 7.4 million. That 7.4 million will offset that 6.1 million throughout the year. As we get our payments, we can pay that off. But what we don't want is we don't want that 6 million to continue to reoccur, and that's in staffing. So every time there's vacancies that come up because we're overstaffed right now, the district will use its position management system that we're incorporating this year to track those positions to eliminate that $6 million budget deficit. So at the end of this year, there'll be no more reoccurring costs because those personnel costs will be gone. That 7.4 million that we're using monthly to cut that budget deficit will catch up really soon because the position vacancies will take a lot of that money away. And so at the end of the year, probably even sooner, that we will have a balanced budget. But we won't have one right now. But at the end of the year, we will have a balanced budget in the Judson ISD because we went through this process, and monthly, as we get our payments, we'll be paying our debt down as well.
Okay, now this will work too. What happens when you start, typically in the past, middle of the year, we're making amendments to the budget. We're adding stuff, not that we necessarily need, but we end up adding stuff. Are we gonna be doing that this year?
The recommendation that we talk with the board all the time is there's no additional spending. This is our budget. If there is a budget amendment, it has to be well thought of and approved for a specific purpose, and we have to be able to fund it, to not go into our fund balance and not deter from the $6 million deficit.
It almost sounds like my home budget, where if I wanna buy something, I gotta give something up in order to get something. So that kinda makes sense.
And what our discussions are all about is no additional spending, no budget amendments, stay the course, and at the end of the year, we'll be able to put some money into the fund balance, and we'll have a balanced budget.
Sounds good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do you have anybody else in the audience that'd like to come up? Okay, moving forward, then we'll go down with the board. Ms. Moyer?
So we actually have time to discuss this as part of the regular agenda, so we would close the hearing now. That's how it's on our agenda.
Sorry, give me a second, let me get my notes together. There being no further business, this meeting has been adjourned at 5:49 p.m. Okay, moving forward to the regular meeting. This regular meeting of the Judson Board of Trustees is hereby called to order at 5:49 p.m. I'm very pleased that you have taken time to join us this evening. As the Judson Board of Trustees, we are here to set goals and policies and oversee the management of the district. We are responsible for approving budgets, contracts, personnel appointments, and to listen to reports from the superintendent. We are not here to make administrative or management decisions pertaining to the daily operations of the district. This is the responsibility of the superintendent. In compliance with state government code on open meetings, tonight's agenda has been appropriately posted. This is a meeting in public, not a meeting of the public. As our guest, you are welcome to observe and listen. These proceedings are being video and audio recorded and will become part of Judson's permanent legal record. In order that the tape adequately reflects these proceedings, please silence your mobile devices and refrain from talking while others are speaking. Since it is legally mandated that these proceedings are recorded accurately, I may have to ask for order periodically should I notice that disruptions are interfering with our recording capabilities. Once again, I extend to each of you a sincere welcome from the entire board. Thank you for your interest in Judson ISD. We have established a quorum, and I will call the roll. Okay, as I said before, Ms. Ryan is out and Mr. Macias has not shown up quite yet, but like I said, we'll make a note of that as soon as he steps in. The next item on our agenda will be public comment. Oh, the invocation. I'm sorry, this is very new to me and I will be stumbling across this for the entire rest of this meeting, so please forgive me.
Hi. Okay. If everyone could please bow their heads. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for giving us all the opportunity to gather here today as a community, and we thank you for the many blessings you have given us. I ask that you bless each person who took time out of their afternoon to support this district, along with their families and loved ones. We ask for your guidance and wisdom in the decisions we make. Please allow us to listen with open hearts, help us lead with integrity, and treat one another with respect, and reflect your love in all that we do. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Amen. Thank you.
If you can remain standing for the recitement of our pledges. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one
have my board members down for our recognitions, please. Thank you. So tonight we are proud to recognize and honor two exceptional members of the Judson ISD Police Department, whose careers have made a lasting impact on our school, staff, and our community. Officer Randall Spring, badge number 906, concludes 5 years of dedicated service to Judson ISD, contributing to an impressive 16 years and 3 months in law enforcement through the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement. Throughout his career, Officer Spring has demonstrated a deep commitment to professional growth, completing 7,924 training hours and earning the distinction of Master Peace Officer. He holds multiple specialized certifications, including school-based law enforcement certification, TCOLE instructor, firearms instructor, ALE-RRT instructor, and mental health officer. His experience, leadership, and willingness to train and mentor others have strengthened not only our department, but also the safety and preparedness of our campuses. Officer Spring is unable to join us this evening, but we extend our sincere appreciation for his service and congratulate him on a well-earned retirement. Congratulations, Mr. Spring. Our other officer we would like to recognize is Officer John Salas, badge number 917. Can you please come up, sir?
While we're gonna read about you.
Yes. Yes. Front and center.
Right? Give me those cups.
Officer Salas retires after an extraordinary 23 and a half years of service with Judson ISD and a total of 32 years in law enforcement. With 2,924 training hours, Officer Salas has consistently demonstrated a commitment to excellence and readiness. A Master Peace Officer, he also holds set of certifications as a school-based law enforcement officer, mental health peace officer, and certified bike officer. In addition, he has also served as a member of the Randolph Metro SWAT team since 2012 and maintained SWAT certification since 2010. His specialized skills and steady presence have contributed significantly to the safety and security of our district and the wider community. Officer Salas' long-standing service reflects dedication, courage, and unwavering commitment to protecting others. On behalf of the Judson ISD Board of Trustees, administration, staff, and families, we extend our heartfelt gratitude to both Officer Spring and Salas. Your service has made a difference in the lives of countless students and colleagues. We wish you both continued success, good health, and fulfillment in your well-deserved retirement. Congratulations. And this is from Dr. Jackwich to you as well.
Come stand here in the middle.
Okay, y'all ready? 1, 2, 3, and then right over here. Okay, congratulations. Thank you.
agenda is the public comment period. This is a time for citizens, staff, parents, or students to provide their comments to the board. A meeting that is open to the public under the Act is one of the public is entitled to attend. However, the Act does not give the public a right to speak at such public meetings except through the proper channels. Before we begin, I will remind our audience members of the board's procedures for handling public comment. Anyone who wanted to speak during the public comment portion of this meeting was required to sign up prior to the start of the meeting. Each public comment speaker will be allowed to speak a maximum of 3 minutes. Yielding of time to other speakers is not permitted. Speakers need to keep their comments civil and courteous and avoid using profanity. Speakers will not be allowed to discuss students who are not their own. While speakers may criticize any act, omission, policy, procedure, program, or service of the board, personal attacks or complaints about individuals will not be allowed. If you have a specific complaint against an individual, I am required to stop you and direct you to seek resolution through the district grievance process. DGBA for employee complaints, FNG for parent or student complaints, and GF for community complaints. Grievance forms can be obtained at campus and administrative office or in the central administrative offices. Thank you. Our first public comment speaker is Jasmine Walks.
Don't stop the timer. Okay, whenever you're ready.
I'll start when you start speaking.
All right. My name is Jasmine Walks, a proud employee and English teacher and now trainer in Judson ISD since 2014. I have since seen the amazing things that our leaders, students, teachers, staff, and campus administration continue to do. As educators, it is our duty to adjust to the needs of our students, and we saw this during COVID. At that time, screens truly seemed like the best way to keep students learning and engaged. The following opinions herein are of my own, but the data is not. As we did our best to navigate COVID, eventually students and teachers returned to schools, buildings became populated again, and it seemed that we were on a roll, but the data wasn't reflecting that. Has the pendulum swung too far? With COVID came the Chromebooks. Though an absolute necessity at the time, they have become an instructional nuisance and a theft of instructional time. This is not just a lack of monitoring, it's bigger. Screens in our faces have become the societal norm. Judson has purchased some truly amazing programs that can be used to supplement instruction, but an excess of technology cannot be a substitute for it. I'm suggesting that we review Chromebook usage and limit their time used in classroom to 60 minutes a week, as scheduled by the teacher, potentially with CAL stations, not including tests, NWEA, or district-required tasks. Otherwise, they are stored in classrooms as a set. Students in STEM programs, AP courses, or other specified pathways would remain on a one-to-one plan for the demands of their specific programs. SPED accommodations will also be considered. Other students would still have access. Perhaps the Chromebooks can be checked out through our librarians. How can we tell students to stay off their phones and then give them Chromebooks as another mode of distraction? Studies have shown the importance of putting pen to paper to process information and retain it. Limiting Chromebook usage would highlight teacher strengths, moments for coaching, peak student engagement with truly internalized meaningful lesson plans, and allow for learning, which is messy. It's scribbled, it's erased, it's checked, it's edited, it's revised, and it's repeated for mastery. I'll leave you with this to consider. Per the Texas Assessment Research Portal, of Judson's 1,894 students who took the English 1 EOC, 1,081 got 0 points out of 10 points for their constructive response. It's not a lack of trying, it's a lack of continuing the practice. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Walks.
Yes,
And now we're going to move on to the superintendent report. Any matter than Dr. J? Go right in.
Thank you. We have our construction report, facilities assessment, Ms. Davis, and she will take you through if we have any questions. And we're so glad to have Ms. Davis
Good evening. This month's construction report highlights our 2016 bond projects that are under construction as well as our 2022 bond. I stand ready for any questions. The Doesn't look like we have any questions. Is anybody down here? One more time? No one? Okay, well then, passing it back over to you again.
The next agenda item on the report is our curriculum update, and we will have our curriculum team provide us with a presentation of where we are today regarding our assessments.
Checking the time to see if I say good evening or good afternoon. Okay, so good evening, board and community principals. So I'm happy to be back, and we are once again speaking about data. So what, and actually I am gonna need this, Betty, only because I needed to move it. Okay. So I'm happy to be back because we're talking about data again, and this is great because we're establishing a monthly cadence because we're continuing our story, and it's a story that we can all influence to the benefit of our students. So let's continue the story that we started on June 8th. The largest chunk of our accountability, 70% of it, comes from the better of Domain 1 or Domain 2. So we started the story at the June 8th meeting where we discussed the Domain 1 academic achievement scores. That's where we looked at all of the different tests by grade levels and subjects, and we were kind of looking at the grade that each of the campuses made on those tests. Tonight we're going to continue with our story as well with incorporating Domain 2 school progress. That's kind of the forward momentum that a campus has. It's looked at two ways, either student growth from year to year or a comparison between campuses that have similar socioeconomic percentages. What's great about this way, the way the framework is it kind of provides a safe haven because the best of those two scores are used, but yet we still have the data of the lower performing ones so that we can attack what needs to be addressed. So let's flash back for a little bit to June 8th meeting. We looked at Domain 1, but we looked at it individually by different grade levels and different subject areas. But to understand the STAR rating and the A through F accountability, it's not really just a pass or fail. So it separates it into 4 categories. We do have the did not meet, but then the passing is separated into 3 different performance levels. We have approaches, and that does get us past the line, over the passing line, but that's not where we want to land. That's not the finish line. We have the next 2, which are meets and masters performance levels. Meets, we've discussed before, means students on track for their grade level and that content. And of course, masters signals college and career readiness. What we want to see is we want to see performance hoppers. We want, if you are and did not meet, we want you moving to approaches, then to meets, and finally to masters. So now since we're looking at the accountability framework, Domain 1, this is what it looks like. It's a pretty mixed view. So we have 15 campuses that improved their Domain 1, and we're comparing early projections to early projections. Domain 1, 15 of them improved, 14 declined, 2 actually calculated the same. And we have 2 new campuses, Cibolo Creek and Selma, so there is no historical data for them. So definitely not a total victory, but yet not a total collapse. And just like Drs. Duhartoppen and Saunders mentioned, it does, we are differentiating, and this is proof of differentiating the support even further for the campuses. Again, preliminary. We still are waiting for the 5th grade science and 8th grade science scores, so elementary and middle schools are not complete yet. But this is what Domain 1 looks like as we start calculating for the A through F accountability, where we saw a whole bunch of 3rd, 4th, 5th grade RLA or math. We have this all now together, and then it's scaled for the A through F rating. So now that we've reviewed chapter 1, we're moving on to chapter 2 of the story. And this one actually has a story within the story. So we have two parts, Part A, academic growth, and Part B, relative performance. So first, know that because we're looking at progress, we actually are looking at student performance starting in the 4th grade, because you have to have a previous STAR test for it. We also are only looking at math and RLA, because those are the only two tests that are consistently given through elementary, middle school, and then high school. So we just got finished reviewing Domain 1, and we talked about the 4 performance levels. This actually takes Domain 1, which I lovingly, as the principals know, I love to say Domain 1 is the domain that keeps on giving. So what happens here is they actually enhance those performance levels. So like we discussed on June 8th, it actually takes did not meet and approaches and separates them into low and high bands. These are enhanced performance level bands. This is important because what Domain 2 Part A is able to do then is capture some small meaningful growth steps that the students do. Matter of fact, there are points available up to 1 point for students growing, sometimes even if they're still within the did not meet band. There's also points available for maintaining. So if you see on the table those little yellow half scores, on the lower end, they can maintain and earn half a point, at the higher end, 1 point. That was a lot of information. So what does that look like? So the way you use this table is we always look at the prior year. Where did the student land last year? Which one of those performance bands? Then we ask, where did they land this year? Once we determine those two areas, we're able to determine whether the student earned a point or half a point. So in this example where the yellow arrows are pointing, the student last year was low did not meet, but this year he earned high did not meet. That student earned 1 point for growth. The reason it's a point is because to score on the low did not meet, there are some significant gaps that the student needs to overcome. And because of the work that the student and teacher and family did, and he moved up to high did not meet, it was a point. There is maintaining though as well, like I just said. So high did not meet to high did not meet, we actually get half a point. And the reason for that, and we've discussed this many times before as well, is because we know if a student goes from 3rd grade to 4th grade, the concepts get harder. There's more academic vocabulary, more rigor to the lessons. And so even though that student still falls within the did not meet, he hopped a little bit and we're getting half a point of credit. However, I did say we want performance hoppers over those thresholds. So if a student goes from did not meet to approaches, now we see green because he's earning the full point available. We do get half a point for maintaining on the lower end at lower high approaches because again, it's difficult once you're still learning some new stuff that you haven't quite reached the meets or masters area yet, and you're learning all this new information. But once you get at the meets or masters level, where we do want you to land up, where we want students to be at on meets grade level, master's grade level, you get a point for maintaining. However, I'm sure you also noticed a bunch of zeros on that transition table. So zeros were not really deducted points, but if a student regresses, even if a student moves from master's grade level to meets grade level, it's kind of leaving points on the table. It's like walking away without picking up your change off of the counter. You're not deducted from it, but you're not earning anything either. And this is important because it's not only about accountability and the A through F rating, it's also about the students. We want to prepare them for that next grade level. We want them to be as ready as possible. So that was part A. Now we're moving on to part B of Domain 2. This is a little bit different, and once again, Domain 1. What this looks like is all it does is it takes Domain 1 score and for a campus, and it looks at every other campus, let's stick with elementary, every other elementary campus that has a similar economic disadvantage percentage, and it says, where do you land there for the campus? So it compares schools with similar realities.
For elementary and middle schools, it's all based on STAR, just like Domain 1. For high schools, CCMR is blended in with STAR for a truer picture of the school's progress. So, like I just said, the sliding scale moves with the domain. That's why you have a slope. So, the lower an economic disadvantage percentages for the school, the higher Domain 1 needs to be for them to make an A in this domain, in Part B. So here's an example for an elementary school. And this is just a made-up school, has 67% EcoDisc, so they would need about a 58 in their Domain 1 score to make an A. But maybe another elementary school has fewer economically disadvantaged students, so they need a higher Domain 1 score. So it kind of levels the playing field for these demographic realities. Again, just looking to school this year-to-year comparison from projections. Again, a mixed review. We have 15 campuses that improved, 16 that declined, and the 2 new campuses do not have a history. Since we did discuss the Part A and Part B, just so you know, Part A is trending higher. That's the student growth for 17 campuses. For 15 of them, Part B is trending higher, and then 1 campus happened to calculate the same in both areas. So again, preliminary. Everything's preliminary until the TEA releases the results, the accountability results in August. The reason this is still preliminary, again, is when we're looking at Domain 1 for Part B, if we don't have science, then we don't have the full picture yet. So let's go back all the way to the beginning of the story again. 70% comes from Domain 1 or Domain 2. So we always start with Domain 2 once we have all the calculations, which is better, A or B. That then turns into your Domain 2 score, school progress score. Then we ask which is better, which one's higher, Domain 1 or Domain 2. This best score is the score where our campus's 70% is based. So how are we trending right now? And no, this is already, it continues to change. It's changed, and it'll change weekly until probably late July, because the science scores, the state said about July 28th. So it'll be changing. So right now we have 2 campuses that look like they're going to get their 70% from Domain 1. The other 31 will get it from Domain 2. And to break that down even further, is we have 17 of the campuses getting it from Part A and 14 from Part B. So the story is still evolving, and we still have Domain 3 to go over at the next meeting, but for right now, that's where we're sitting on our accountability.
Thank you very much for that. Did we have any questions from the board? Ms. Stanford?
One thing I've heard from teachers is that there seems to be a disconnect between communication with C&I. There seems to be a disconnect there. And I'm just wondering if there's any way to bridge that gap to where teachers can communicate more freely with what's working, what's not working.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, I'm trying to get some mics to work here. Is this one working? Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah. So I've heard that from so many quarters. Just heard it again today. There just seems to be a gap or a distance between what the teachers are doing in the trenches and where they perceive C&I to be.
Yes, ma'am.
But you all consider C&I very important, and I'm just wondering if can we fix that?
So when we talked June 8th, you guys gave us some feedback and things to think about, and one of the things that we talked about on June 8th was we really wanted to pull in 3rd grade teachers and we wanted to pull in 7th grade teachers, like get some feedback from people who are closest to the work, right? Because we can sit here and we can try to figure out or guess at what we think maybe the missteps are, but we need to actually be talking to the people who are closest to the work. And I have to be really honest with you, today was a great day in Judson ISD. So we had a room full of third grade teachers, and we had a conference room full of seventh grade teachers. I think two things I want to stamp for the board that was just so impressive with this group is, first of all, it's the middle of summer for them, and they took time out of their day to come in and hang out and talk about like nerd stuff at a really high level, which was incredibly impressive. The other beautiful thing about it was the conversation and the way that it moved in the space was so solution oriented. And I'm going to be honest, I was really nervous about having conversations about data, because for us it's personal, for teachers it's even more personal, it's their life's work. So you have to really be careful how you navigate that. And it was a beautiful iteration of the powerful things coming to Judson ISD. Let me give you an idea of some of the feedback, if you guys are, if we have time. So we asked we gave an exit ticket just like you would in a third grade classroom. And some of the things we asked is if there's one thing we could leverage from our academic trainers, from our principals, and from C&I, one thing from each one of those groups to move instruction forward, what would it be? So for academic trainers, they're looking for more modeling, and they want really tight PLCs, or professional learning communities. They want them to be scripted out, and teachers want to leave with next steps. Like they want to spend that time, 10% on the problem and 90% on the solution, and leave with next steps. The other thing they said they would like to hear from principals, and I'm sorry that you guys are hearing it for the first time in this space, but they really are thirsty for that action step, that feedback. And when you have created a culture where teachers are thirsty for feedback, we have really kind of arrived, because that has not always been the case in Judson ISD. So one of the things they talked about is, as a principal, when you're giving feedback, I need it to be bite-sized, I need it to be quick, and I want you to come in fairly soon, like within the next 48 hours, and observe that feedback in action so that we can kind of move to the next step. And then for us, for the C&I team, overwhelmingly the teachers are saying, please give us differentiated PD, please. Like if you've been in the game for 20 years, you don't necessarily need to hear year one of Bluebonnet. So the beautiful side effect about the differentiated PD is we were able to leverage these teachers and actually sign them up to deliver August PD, which is where we need to be, right? That's what we were hoping this process would be. It was, like I said, I started by saying it was a beautiful day in Judson ISD. It was so incredibly powerful to hang out with these guys and know that we are all grinding away for the same result. And overwhelmingly, we also heard, please have these feedback meetings more often. Please touch base with us more often. We had a TPES meeting later that afternoon with one of the principals, and one of the next steps that we talked about was, now we're going to bring all of third, all of fourth, all of fifth grade into the same space so we can talk about what that looks like. It was really it was impressive.
So who all was again in the?
So we had third grade teachers, representative from most campuses. We did not have every campus there because people were clearly on vacation. Then we had yes, and Dr. Lofton was in there. Miss Orlesco-Jones was in there, and our math coordinator was in there, and then seventh grade replicated the same thing.
So teachers.
Teachers.
And y'all.
Yes.
So is there ever a time it'd be worth bringing in some C&I people too, so they can all mix and talk?
So we did have the elementary director there, and we had Miss Orlesco-Jones there, and a coordinator.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, we had our representative and also our math coordinators written from the teachers.
Great. I love hearing that you're getting them together. Because they just need that communication. And are we willing to try off the wall things at this point, such as what Ms. Walk suggested, like maybe experimenting with pulling Chromebook back a little bit and seeing?
We are all about bold moves.
Okay.
Yes.
And we are all about feedback from every stakeholder. We are open and willing and able to move forward and meet the needs of not only teachers, but the community and families. And I think that's one of the things that really resonated today when we were meeting with teachers. we said before, it is their life's work. So our responsibility is to support them and meet their needs, which looks different for every teacher in Judson ISD, and that's our responsibility.
And I have to bring up what another teacher wanted to talk to you about, and then that's that Mississippi Miracle thing, where we draw a line, and I don't know if that would work for us particularly, but is it something we could take a look at and see where it would fit with us, where third graders don't pass if they don't read?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, what's the practicality of that? I don't know. There is data out there that turned a state around that was on a very low level. So daring things like that, are we willing to be that daring?
We are all in. We are bold moves across the board.
Okay, that's good. The principals are looking like, what? How bold?
Did I say anything we have not talked about?
All right, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Would anybody else like to say anything or have any other questions? Don't y'all still have more to say?
We can go over next steps if you guys would like us to.
Kristen?
Yes, ma'am. You want me to come over here?
Whatever you want.
Nope, I will be more than happy to. Okay, so we talked a little bit about the feedback we got from the board on June 8th, the feedback that we got from principals. So some of the next steps that we've already implemented, I will stamp those for you and send then some of those that were in the process. So you guys had mentioned, have you conducted a root cause analysis? So that was June 8th. June 9th, we set up a meeting with Carnegie and we did a root cause analysis. So we are knee deep, and the purpose of a root cause analysis is really to be intentional about what is that root cause of our stagnant instructional practices, and then address that root cause. And the reason why you want to be intentional with the root cause is because otherwise it looks like a dartboard, and we've thrown darts in every single direction. Some of them stick, some of them make a difference, but the reality is we want to be right there in the middle of that bullseye. So what we did is we went through this 10-step analysis, right, where you just kind of grind through questions until you get to the root cause. And so one of the things that we talked about with Carnegie, because as you guys know, they are our Lift Lasso partner, is now that we've gone through this root cause, that's really the marching orders for Carnegie moving forward. We're not talking about 10 initiatives across Judson ISD. We're talking about being very intentional. It's that quality versus quantity conversation. And so we really dug into the feedback from you guys and those next steps. You want to talk about the priority pyramid?
Yes, so one of the things that when we walked away from that meeting and before they walked away from us is that we had to distill all that conversation, and we were in there about 2 or 3 hours, distill all that conversation down to 4 core areas: performance management, observation, feedback, and coaching cycle, your school-wide routines and systems, and your research-based strategies. Y'all gonna be hearing us talk about RBs a lot, because that's what we call them when we're talking with Carnegie about RBs and what are those strategies that we're going to be focusing on for Judson ISD, that we're going to train our teachers on and be doing our instructional walks to look for. And so those are the 4 areas they walked out of that meeting with to go start creating what we are calling our action plan for the CNI department with our Lift partner. The other part of that is thinking about strategic initiatives. I think it was Ms. Ryan that mentioned something in the meeting that we had on the 8th about what type of programs does TEA have. And we have been taking part in a lot of those programs. That's what those LASSO grants are. So we got the LASSO grant for LASSO 4, but one of the things that we talked about is ACE campuses. And we're not quite there as a district yet about campuses where you do a total school redesign and build a campus with TIA teachers and all of that to make sure that you are addressing the needs that you need on those campuses that were historically low performing or struggling campuses. And so one of those things we're looking at right now is that even though we're not ready to do the LASSO grant again, that we just got one, there's another one coming up in September and another one opening up in October. We're already looking ahead, but we're going to take some of those pieces from those grants and try to implement them now this year, even without the money that comes along with it, and see what we can do within the district.
One of the other things that when we talked to you guys on June 8th, one of the things that we talked about was there was a question about Tier 1 instruction and what that solid first teach looks like. So we have an opportunity to bring in a couple of vendors into Judson ISD who can help us deliver this strong first teach or solid first teach to teachers in that August PD. So this kind of tips the hat again to that differentiation conversation, because we have resident experts in our district living and breathing within our district that can deliver this PD to our teachers. So when we talk about this differentiated PD, those teachers that are new to the practice or maybe need some refinement with Tier 1 instruction would be this PD would be delivered by our vendor. Those individual teachers who are grinding away at Tier 1 instruction and are gifted at it would be delivering that PD to teachers who maybe just need a little bit of refinement. So it really gives us an opportunity to do two things: provide differentiated PD for our teachers, which is what they are begging for, and also leveraging those resident experts that we already have. I would be remiss if I didn't also mention this. It is not on the slide, but it's important for you guys to know. One of the things that was mentioned June 8th was it would be beneficial if you guys would visit campuses or districts that their instructional practices are moving forward at a little bit faster rate than ours. Again, we have a resident expert in our district, so one of the things we talked about, Ms. Valdez, if I get this wrong, I want you to help me. One of the things we talked about today is Crestview is historically an A campus. Even with leadership changes, they are historically an A campus. We don't need to drive to Northeast. We don't need to drive to Southwest. We don't need to drive to SAISD. We need to drive to Narrow Pass, and we need to hang out with that campus. We already talked today about her assembling a panel of teachers so that they can talk with our campus leadership and talk about what are the things that are happening on this campus that we can then distill and disperse it across Judson ISD. So we heard the feedback about visiting other districts or other campuses that maybe are a little bit more moving forward with instructional practices. We are going to do that within the walls of Judson ISD, and we are very excited about that opportunity.
And the last two things we want to leave you with is that one of the things we kept hearing today in both of our sessions, and especially in my 7th grade session, is like, please do not abandon PLC. They were talking about how important it is to have that time to collaborate with their peer teachers and learn from each other, and have that to be protected time for teachers to really grow their craft by listening to other teachers and learning from other teachers. They were talking about, we had them go through and dot it out. Like, what are the things that we're doing right now? What do you think have been the most effective for you as a teacher in helping you grow your craft? And that was one of the things, was the keep enhancing our professional learning communities and what we're doing with that, and to add some things in there about rehearsing before you get in front of your kids, to actually teach it for the first time so your first teach is effective. And then the last thing is that the monitoring and accountability. They want people in their classrooms. They want people looking at what they're doing. They want visitors coming in and leaving feedback, actionable feedback to them, so they can continue to grow. So we're talking about instructional walks, the great book, if anybody wants it, I got it. Instructional walks, and what that looks like from every level, from the district level, from the CNI team down to principals walking each other's campuses and whatnot. So that's a big plan that we're working on going into next year, to make sure we have those on a good cadence, so that teachers are getting feedback from all different sources, and so we can continue to grow and get stronger together. And that concludes our presentation.
Okay, we can start down here. Mr. Vicius, did you have any questions?
Yes, I do. Thank you for your presentation. And again, to my community, my apologies for being late. It's been a rough summer, a lot of work to do, but I'm happy to be here. I just wanted to also welcome back Ms. Davis to the boardroom, and wanted to start my commentary by saying back in 2016, I asked Dr. Montoya to please provide some insight why we're not making the leaps that we need to make in curriculum. And he tasked Dr. Davis to put together a very comprehensive document on what those challenges and issues were. So I'm going to pull that document, because I saved it all, because obviously everything comes around. We're talking about a document that was done 10 years ago now. But there's still probably some consistencies in our addressing this issue. I'm happy to hear that Crestview is going to be something that we're seeing here, but just to kind of speak it into existence, the challenges are pretty recognizable, and we talk a lot about the successes, which is great, but we also have been very receptive to those challenges. What are those things? And of course, the relevance of professional development and really giving our teachers the support they need. Stability on campus, not changing campus leadership in the multitude in which we've done. Trying to have our principals pick their team. I hear a lot that they don't get a chance to make a choice of who their AP is going to be, or academic coach, or any of those things, or instructional coach. So there are some challenges. The one that I've heard a lot lately, though, is the teachers don't feel like they're getting enough insight into their teachers, which means I don't know if they're being evaluated, I don't know which campus is, but having teacher feedback on being stronger in the classroom is critical. And I've not taken a deep dive to ask our administration what that looks like, but I feel there's some challenges there that could be addressed. None of this is intended to be gotcha, because it's not, we're all on the same team. We need to get there. It's refreshing to talk about academics, because ultimately that's what we should be talking about. And so I have a lot to think and say and comment on, but I would just say that I'm going to forward the document to administration, the one that Ms. Davis did, so that you guys can review it as well, because I'm telling you, we've been talking a lot about this. We need to move the needle. I appreciate the enthusiasm, and I guess in a short, just so that I don't spend this entire time making commentary, I guess if we could look at the first thing I mentioned about professional development, what are we doing to make sure that we're creating relevant space for professional development for our professionals, so that they're actually excited to learn what they have to learn? So is there some focus or emphasis on that as we move forward tied to curriculum?
So one of the things that we started receiving feedback on through our curriculum committee, and then we heard it from the board on June 8th, and then we also heard it from principals through their end-of-year evaluation, is principals as well as teachers are looking for differentiated PD. So that's really our goal for August, is to create a catalog of professional development sessions that, I'm gonna be very honest with you, for some teachers it's going to be, these are what you're assigned to. And for other teachers it's going to be, here's the menu, choose what meets your needs. And then for other teachers, it is, you are doing an incredible job with, for example, small group instruction, so congratulations. Now you're teaching a PD session here in Judson ISD, because we need to leverage those resident experts that we have in our space. As I told Ms. Stanford earlier, when you've reached or created a culture within the district where, number one, teachers feel comfortable giving feedback to central office, that's huge. And number two, where teachers feel like I can say, this is an area I need to grow, and can you help me find PD for that? When you've reached that level, that's pretty remarkable. That's a new space for us. We have not always had that open dialogue with not only principals, but teachers as well. So we're incredibly excited about what August is going to look like, because it feels a lot like Harry Wong in the first days of school. Harry Wong always says, when instruction happens, kids should be the most tired, not teachers. So what that looks like for August is teachers should be the most tired, not C&I, because our teachers are going to help leverage the professional development, which is an incredible space to be in.
And I'll tag on to that. One of the things we kept hearing about, and it's been an area that we've had to work on for several years, is writing. The state went this way, then went that way, then came back this way again with it. And so for the second summer in a row, we are offering writing professional development in July. Not waiting until they come back to us in August, but giving you time in July while you're still on your summer break to come in and get instruction in in writing so that you're able to flip that to your students in August when you come back to school. And so we were trying to put together really quickly, because we heard something about 7th grade math today, and they're like, can you offer something before we get back in August, because we want the time to spend with our curriculum materials and whatnot before we have to get back into putting our classrooms together and all of that. So we're working on that today. The coordinators heard that and they started on it today. So we're listening, we've been listening, but we're now been able to put some pieces in place that we haven't been able to.
I'm always inspired by your replies and your responses. It's hard for us to know because I'm very receptive to my teaching community. They'll talk to me, and so I may hear input, but it may just be a percentage rather than the whole, right? And I'm always cognizant of that possibility. So ultimately, what I rely on as a board member are surveys, satisfaction surveys. Teachers not calling me saying my PD is, what the heck are we doing? That's what I would like to eventually see, and we'll ask whoever is in administration, Jacqueline, Dixon, whoever it might be, to finally put together a report for the board to see a survey from our teachers, almost like beginning of the year, middle of the year, end of year, same kind of concept, to make sure that teachers are indeed satisfied with the level of development that's making them feel like it's not a waste of their time. We want to give them relevant PD. I think you guys can echo that's important. And then I guess my last comment and question would be that we have curriculum vacancies that we're going to be going into next year. I should say that. We have vacancies, 500 plus, that we're not bringing back next year. How many of those are touching curriculum?
You're talking about at the central office level?
Anything that touches curriculum. Because once you start taking pieces off the bus, that's going to have a domino effect. So if it's coordinators in curriculum, or if it's instructional coaches, or if it's an AP, or whatever that might be that touches curriculum, that's what I'd like to get a better sense. You don't have to answer that question now, because that's a much more in-depth question. But I'd like to know, because as I was listening to the meeting on my drive up from work, I heard Dr. Jacqueline mention that we have 9% of our budget that we're going to spend, 3% we're going to bring in. That 3%, we're going to have to reallocate, because I'm anticipating a need to support curriculum with all of those vacancies. And so I'd like to ultimately see what that curriculum aspect looks like, and then for administration, get a sense of what we're going to bring back. We still don't have a CFO. I mean, that's not your area, but I'm just saying, those are things that touch that budget that we're going to talk about a little later that are important. So again, Dr. Jackish, if you could pass it on or whatnot, but I eventually would like to know the curriculum positions that are vacant, that we've left vacant going into next year, to see what that might look like so that we can devise a plan. And if it means going into our fund balance, I mean, we can't not give our students our very best. And if that requires bringing positions back that are tied to curriculum, we need to talk about that. But anyway, so again, I had a question, but I don't expect you would have that answered here. But I certainly want to get back to that. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Ms. Jones? Ms. Lynn?
No, I just want to really make a comment about, thank you so much for all of the hard work you guys are doing for the curriculum. But I'm out of curiosity though, because we heard about the elementary side. How about the middle school, the 7th grade teachers? And like, if you can share the feedback, Dr. Catherine, that would be great, because I know that you guys mentioned about Crestview as a best example, and now you know how we saw the scores and everything for our middle scores, and that's kind of like a big concern for us. So I just want to hear like what's like the feedback for parents, or what are the feedbacks from the 7th grade teachers. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. We also got feedback from my 7th grade teachers. Kristen got really excited about elementary, so we just keep going.
I'm a nerd.
But we were nerding out together anyway after we got through with the meeting today. But one of the things that stood out was they asked about the pacing. One of the things they were talking about there, like we want the opportunity that after we give a unit assessment to have time to talk with our kids about the questions that they missed and about all of those things. And the way our pacing was not giving them that leeway to have enough time without pushing them and making them fall behind on their scope and sequence on what they were covering. And so we were glad to tell them today that that was one of the first things we tackled this summer, is to pace out the lessons better and the units better, so they will have that time to spend with their kids to talk about how they performed on their assessments. So pacing was one. They're like, can you give us a little, like an extra day or two in between the units so that we can have time to look at what went wrong when they take the unit assessment and talk about what we can do, and then to reteach or review or whatever they need to do before they move on to the next unit. So that was one of the things they talked about. They also asked for more opportunities to come in and to have the discussions with their peers from other districts. Peers from other schools within our district. It was beautiful to see, like, some of these people didn't know each other, but they got together really quickly as they all had 7th grade math in common. And so having more opportunities to come together, and we were doing that before, but then the attendance of those fell down drastically, where we would only have 1 or 2 people show up. And then so we kind of like pushed those to the side and try to double our efforts in going to the campuses instead of having those meetings after school. But they're asking for them to come back. They want the opportunity to participate in what they call unit launches, so you get to look at the entire unit before you teach it, and be able to work through some things that may be a problem for our kids. So they're like, can y'all bring those back together? And then can we also have more time to give y'all feedback? Like when we take an assessment, can you give you feedback to let you know what didn't work well with our kids, what did work well with our kids? And then the last thing they talked about today is it's kind of like stealing from elementary, talking about concrete. And so one of the teachers that was in the room today used to be an elementary teacher, and she was like, we do a lot of things where kids are touching manipulatives, and they're touching blocks and touching things when they're teaching like proportionality or teaching geometric shapes. So we bring out a triangle, and so the other teachers are, were like, what are you talking about? And so one of the things, you're like bringing those things and making it concrete for students before you get to the equations and making it more abstract and doing the word problem. So starting with things where kids can touch it and bring those more into the units, instead of starting with the hard stuff at the very beginning. So our coordinators left that meeting, and they're going to have to do some work. We just posted the new unit guides and the revised unit guides, so they're going to have to go back and add some of those pieces back into it.
Any more questions, Ms. Lee? Ms. Knoyer?
I just want to say thank you. I know you all, and I know how big your heart is in the work that you do. And I want to thank our administrators who are here as well. It's always so nice to see all of you. This is going to be a challenging year. So many of you are in a new place and new people to meet and new teams to work with. But I have no doubt that you're all going to be successful because I know you care about what you do. I'm excited that we're coming together in a more unified way. Back when I first started teaching in Judson, we were all little islands and everybody did their own little thing. And then once in a while we'd get, like all the 3rd grade teachers would get together, we'd talk about this little unit that we're doing and that thing that we're doing and share all that. And that is very refreshing as a teacher to be able to come together with people who are doing the same things that you are and learn and know from that. And we called it casing the joint. We copy and steal everything and case them, right? And so we come in with our cameras. This is long ago. There was no phone back. We would take pictures of what people were doing, that they were sharing. This is important work that we do to get that talk. Teachers are alone in their classrooms, and they can't do it all themselves. They need the support from curriculum. They need the support from the administration. They need support from the other teachers. They need support from everybody has to come together to do our very best for our students. So I'm really excited to hear about these next steps. And I'm really excited to hear that our teachers are wanting and craving this, because I know they are. I'm excited about the writing training. I want to be involved. Yes. Because that's where my heart is. And so I just want to say thank you, and thank you for taking on this challenge, because I know y'all are going to kill it. I know it's going to be amazing. Thank you.
Ms. Stanford?
I am excited about this idea of getting strong teachers, master teachers, and math is one of our problems, so I'm thinking, bring in some math teachers that are struggling with issues in seventh grade, eighth grade, and sit down with someone like Scott Willis and have him say, well, here's what I would do to address that. Here's how I handled that in the past. And have them hear from someone that's doing a great job already. I would love to see a lot more of that, and I think the teachers would too. I think they'd love to sit down with someone that's addressed those problems, along with our academic trainers, because they're out there working really, really hard to help the teachers address their deficiencies or the problems they're seeing in the classroom. But I love the idea of getting time with successful teachers, and I bet they would love to do it. Mr. Willis has told me he would love for people to come to him with problems that they're having in that. So I'm looking forward to seeing a lot. I'd love to come be a guest.
I think she said deliver PD.
That's right. If we would be allowed, I'd love to sit in on one of those. 'Cause
Absolutely,
it's very,
absolutely.
You know, it's very stimulating.
It is invigorating, that's for sure.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah. Thank you.
And I don't really have a question per se, but again, just kind of echoing some of Ms. Canoyer's statements, just wanted to say thank you for all the work you guys are putting into this. I know, obviously, every single person in this room is here for the kids. And I'm talking from everybody on the board, from everybody out there. We're all here for the kids. So absolutely looking forward to this year. It's gonna be a lot of work, and completely understand that. As a parent, it's gonna be a lot of work for my kids, just to make sure that they're where they're going to need to be. And I understand that I have 2 to watch over, and you guys each have hundreds. So again, just wanna reach out there and just say thank you for everything you guys do. It's amazing, and looking forward to a hard-working year. So just kind of wrapping that up, we can move on to the consideration of consent items. I do know that I need to pull A. And if we can go down the line, we'll start with Ms. Moyer, because it's nothing. Ms. Stanford?
D and M.
Mr. Macias?
None.
Ms. Jones?
None.
And Ms. Lee? Okay, so I am going to make the motion. I move that we approve the consent items B, C, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, and W.
Second.
Okay, the receipts vote. Okay, motion passes 6-0, and I am going to move that we approve the minutes for the special meeting held on May 14th. Do I have a second on that?
Second.
Thank you. And proceed to vote? Or did anybody have any discussion on that? I'm sorry. It's just the meeting minutes, but I know I'm supposed to ask. Nope, okay. And we'll continue to vote. Okay, motion passes 6-0. And Ms. Stanford, did you pull these?
Okay, so these are items over 50,000, and I'm just bringing this back because I see some of the math items in here, Carnegie, and I guess Great Minds. And I just want to read, I'm sorry. Oh, okay. I just want to reiterate, I've heard some concerns from teachers about Bluebonnet and Carnegie. So in this energy that we've just been discussing and the being bold and working with teachers very directly, I just want to make sure we're keeping in touch with them on how they're doing with these programs. Carnegie, Bluebonnet, because there's some doubt out there and some discomfort with it.
So, just to clarify a couple of things, Bluebonnet is the curriculum. Carnegie and Great Minds are the vendors that help support the curriculum. And the growing pains that we're experiencing in secondary right now with Bluebonnet, if you guys will take a trip down memory lane, we had those exact same growing pains when elementary engaged in Eureka, which is really Bluebonnet, right? So we had already sort of, we were very proactive because we knew there was going to be roadblocks and there was going to be a little bit of pushback and a little bit of growing pains because we experienced it with elementary. That's why, if you remember last year, we brought in Carnegie in May before teachers ever went off contract to give them an idea of what the framework would look like and what the instructional practices would look like. And then they would have the summer, like DT was talking about earlier, to engage with the materials. So I think the best thing that we can do at this point is, if you guys are hearing feedback from teachers, please send them our way. Like we talked about with the 3rd grade teachers and the 7th grade teachers today, is feedback only works if you deliver it to the people who can make change happen. So, and we want to hear it. We absolutely want to hear it, because we had a conversation today in 3rd grade about maybe looking at what the math block looks like, and instead of having small group at the very end, having small group at the beginning so we could front load some of those skills. Brilliant idea. And guess what? That costs us $0, right? So those types of things we need to know about. So if you continue to hear, feedback from secondary or elementary teachers, please just tell them, come this way. We are open and solution centered. So we are willing to engage in any conversation whatsoever.
And I think that's a great thing to be able to say in open session, so everybody hears it.
Yes, ma'am.
But if you could also touch base, like we talked earlier about, Mr. Macias mentioned surveys. If you could constantly get feedback as you're moving through work with Carnegie, with Great Minds, and just make sure it's connecting.
Yes, ma'am.
All of our vendors have to do surveys when they present to our teachers. It's required, and that if feedback is given to us from the vendors themselves, it's usually done electronically, and then they mail us a report after the training has gone with our teachers, have been completed with our teachers. One of the things also is that if we get emails all the time from teachers about things that they're concerned about in the curriculum, and we try to be proactive and not have the emails come, but sometimes we have to go in and look at what they're asking us about and fix it because it was a mistake. We're all human, we make mistakes, and so making sure we are listening to the feedback that's coming from the teachers to correct whatever they have concerns about. But every time our vendors stand in front of our teachers, they have to do a survey at the end of that, and that survey comes to us in our offices so we can react to it.
Okay, excellent. That's all I have.
Okay, Ms. Stanford, would you like to make the motion?
Yeah, can I just say D, like you did B, C, and so I move that we take action, that we approve, I move that we approve regarding approving. We approve expenditures equal to or greater than 50,000.
Second.
Thank you.
And proceeding to vote. Okay, motion passes 6-0. And I believe letter M is also yours, Ms. Stanford?
Yes. So M involves the student code of conduct, and I got some feedback on this. And one was on, I don't have a page number, but it was regarding number 9, hair must be neat and clean, hairstyles and or hair colors that are considered by school administration to be distracting and or disruptive to the educational environment are prohibited. And I agreed when I read it, but I've also since had feedback that that could be very subjective. You could feasibly have a student in one class that the teacher doesn't consider distracting, and another classroom that does. So how are we drawing that line? How are we making that determination? Okay.
The change was made so that it could be at the discretion of the administrator based on how the student is grouped. Oftentimes, I understand that that could be discretionary. However, I trust that our administrators are going to be as diligent as possible in ensuring that everything is considered. I know that there are some biases that can occur, and that's part of the training that we receive. But ultimately, if it becomes a distraction to the learning environment, we want to make sure that it is groomed, that it is clean, and that it is neat.
Okay, there was a suggestion for wording on this that I want to just present to the board for consideration. And that is, as a replacement, hair must be clean and styled to avoid causing safety or health hazards, distractions, or disruptions in the educational setting. They do go on to add, school staff may not discriminate on the basis of race, ethnicity, sex, gender, or all the title issues. I don't know if that's kind of presumed, I think, on everything we do. It could maybe be added at the beginning of the code of conduct. I wouldn't personally agree it would need to be tacked on right here. But I wanted to get y'all's feedback on how that sounds. I'll read it again. Hair must be clean and styled to avoid causing safety or health hazards, distractions, or disruptions in the educational setting. Any feedback on that? Any objections to it?
I think how it worded in the code of conduct pretty much says that.
I know this came from IDRA, so I mean they work with this all the time, and so I just told them I'll put it forward and just see how y'all felt. If you feel it would be worth it or it's clear enough as it is.
I mean, my question to you guys would be for you to, how do you feel about changing the wording on that? Do you feel like that's something that is necessary, just you have more access to campuses and?
I would think that the time that we live in right now, you'll see a little bit of everything on campuses.
Yeah.
That is why the wording was put the way it was in the student code of conduct, that it's only the principal that could make that decision or that distinction. A teacher can be offended because your hair is orange, but that is the norm at any of the campuses that you go on today. You'll see just about everything. And so, unless it's causing a distraction, and I think that we train our principals well enough to know that you don't take that step unless it is hindering the educational environment, if it is a safety issue, if it is that. So I think spelling it out like that is not necessary, because I think the way it's written right now is pretty clear.
Okay. Okay. I just promised I'd bring that forward. And just on the, let's see, number 5, that says a strap on a top has to be 3 fingers wide. I assume that's the students.
Students, yes.
No, it's the students' fingers. How do we measure?
Yes, it's the students' fingers.
Okay.
I'm not mistaken, because the issue became this year that we were seeing a lot of spaghetti straps and tube tops. And so it was brought back to the committee at the request of our campus administrators and whatnot, to make sure that we made it clearer for our community, with that before you go buy clothes, this is what we're expecting to see. And no one's gonna put their fingers on any student to measure it. It's gonna be the student's fingers. But that was really in response to the spaghetti straps and the tube tops that we just had a plethora of this year.
I'm sorry, Dr. Jerry, did you want to say, are we okay? Okay. And Ms. Camper?
You don't want to also say just no spaghetti straps?
I think the 3 fingers. Ceci, I'm talking over you.
No,
I'm sorry.
there are, you could say that, but then that would eliminate
straps that might be a little bit thicker, but not thick enough.
Well, I mean, that in addition to. Do you feel this will be clear enough for?
I think the 3 fingers includes spaghetti straps and anything under
Okay.
3 fingers.
Okay, then that's all I had. I promised I would bring those concerns forward, so.
So now I make a motion.
Unless there's any other comments. Okay, so I move that we approve the revisions for the 26-27 JISD Student Code of Conduct.
Second.
Okay, and I just realized that I've not been saying this, so I apologize, Ms. Betty. I know it might be a little difficult later on. Ms. Mankers read the motion, and we have Ms. Lee seconding the motion. Any further discussion? No? Okay, we'll proceed to vote. Okay, measure passes 6-0. And moving on to our consideration of action and discussion and consideration of action items. 5A, discussion and possible action regarding approval of the proposed budget for the 2006-2007 fiscal year. Dr. J?
Yes, Dr. Gibson, would you come on up to the table, please? Thank you. We would be glad to answer any of the questions that the board has regarding our budget, the journey that we've taken to get here, and what our proposal is tonight.
Okay, I think we'll, again, just go up and down the row here, and we'll start over here. So we'll start over here with Mr. Macias.
So Dr. Gibson, I had the pleasure of having to be stuck in traffic the last time you guys met to discuss this item. And I wish I couldn't yell loud enough for you to hear me because I had some comments. And all of it kind of centered on the logic of balancing our budget and proposing a budget in which we've produced. But during the conversation, I kept wanting to ask, we still have a deficit, still $6 million roughly. And since part of what we've been able to recapture in the past are vacant positions that we've left, that we were not able to fill, we've eliminated that with the 536 that we've moved on. So which means we have other variables like enrollment. Enrollment is not to the degree it needs to be next year due to private school vouchers or any other variable, charter schools. We're going to see less revenue next year, which will also increase our debt. So I'm going into next year feeling as optimistic as I can, but still gravely concerned with the lack of personnel on the bus. And as you heard earlier today during our discussion, I'd like to have a real clear idea of where those vacancies are, because that will give me a better sense strategically of where we need to dive into our fund balance. So the discussion was talking about our fund balance, not touching it. But there are variables out there that we don't even know we may need. Expenses that we can't even anticipate that'll come through. So talk a little bit about our fund balance right now. We're going into next year with a $6 million deficit. I'm not going to count on 97% because we should have been budgeting so close that we get to almost 100%, knowing that's not real. So I'm not going to count on 3%. So I'd like to know exactly where, after we pass this budget, if we're $6 million in the hole, what our fund balance will look like, and because you talked to the board about fund balance as well. So I want to revisit that conversation right now to figure where we are.
Yeah, thank you. And I'll lean on Amanda for micro analysis, and I will kind of hit it from a macro analysis. But it's a good question, and I think we started this conversation. I appreciate this question, Ms. Macias, with me sitting here or somewhere in this room talking about the 25-26 budget, the 26-27 budget, and the 27-28. So these three budgets, I think I just said we've got to think about those three budgets and as one thing. And the concern that was coming our way is that at the end of the or sometime during the 27-28 budget, we were gonna run out of cash. I mean, like that, there's enough of a cash burn that basically our savings account, we would still be generating revenue through the state formula and through local taxation, but we would be overspending at such an amount that our savings account, which is required how many days?
It's cash on hand in 60 days, and then fund balance 75 days.
So that amount, we were gonna kind of just go past that and then spend all of our cash reserves.
Let me just interject a quick one, just for the record. I'm not insinuating that we get to that point. We certainly need to do something and take some measures. But looking into the future now and trying now to be proactive in addressing the potential need, we're here now. So
well, and that
based on these numbers and
that was just the beginning of my sentence. So, comma.
but I never would have agreed to go into the
I got you. I hope that no one took it that I was insinuating. I'm just saying collectively, like, that was the realization. There was a chart, we were looking at a line, and everybody agreed. I think you spoke up. And you said we can't let that line go down. Okay. So, now having said that, I do believe if you think about that line graph, it makes me proud to know that it was coming like this, and we basically, I mean, would you agree, like we've leveled that out. So from this point going forward, it's, what do we do? What happens to that line? Does it stay where we need it to stay? Does it tick up a little bit? Or, do we get a little, and I'm not saying that we're thinking about doing this, but do we kind of get comfortable because we're above fund balance and, oh wait, let's just do that one thing. Okay, well now let's do that thing, or wait a minute, we gave that thing, so now let's give this thing. I'm not saying that's where we're headed, I'm just saying that can happen, and then the line turns back down. So really it comes down to go forward, just cost containment and position control. I mean, if I had to share 2 words tonight on a go-forward basis, it's just cost containment and position control.
And that's actually a good suggestion, but it again gives me this proactive mindset. We probably need to prioritize criteria that would mean we would dig into the fund balance and what criteria we would not. Because like I said, I don't want to be where we don't touch it. I mean, the reality is a chiller is going to break down. If we don't have money in our bond to fix it, we got to pay for it ourselves. So there has to be a priority depth left, and all districts across Texas use their fund balance if they have it for something. So I don't want to get in a position, especially with culture on our board now, that we can't touch the fund balance. We should be able to utilize those resources when we need it. So prioritizing criteria might be something this board might set into the future.
I would agree with that, Mr. Massey.
That way we know, because like
just to be clear, we're talking about when you're in excess of the required minimal amounts. What is the criteria for when we might touch it? I think that's a good idea.
I think
for all
should.
boards
I
to set that.
I think we should, yes. But I guess what I was really wanting to reiterate is the need to use our fund balance, because we can't have a hands-off approach with it and feel like, but it's a board decision, and it's going to be case by case. But if we start thinking intelligently now about what the criteria might be, it might be easier for us to make certain decisions rather than pass amendments and increase costs and whatnot.
So I do agree that fund balance policy agreed upon by the full board is a good idea. I mean, one thing, and I'm not, again, insinuating that you're saying the opposite of what I'm saying, but it's just a caution. We just kind of, I think I said this the last time I was sitting here, we got the water like below the nose and above the mouth, So sit still for just a little bit, and make sure, in other words, how many kids are coming in the fall? What's our snapshot report? It's almost like just everybody sit completely still until October or November. And let's see where we are. Then where did we settle? And even in next December, is that when you do your audit for the previous year? Is that December-ish?
No, it's
Say it when?
The audit's starting out this year.
Okay, but when will it be presented to the board?
November.
Okay, so that to me, that's two very important benchmarks, the snapshot and then the audit, like,
Yeah.
because then we have audited numbers, not just like speculation.
Yes.
That's just my recommendation is to kind of sit still till October and November and look at those two data points.
And then we have our certified tax values coming out at the end of July. Right
That's
now,
true,
they're-
so that's another important
Yes.
data point, like what truly gets certified,
Mhm.
another really good data.
My original question, what will our fund balance be after we pass this budget?
Yeah, I guess my answer is I don't think we'll know until.
Well, so the unaudited fund balance right now is 50.6 million
Okay.
when this gets adopted. That's unaudited, that's just an estimate.
Okay, I appreciate the ballpark. I'll yield there. Thank you.
Mhm.
Ms. Jones? I do have one question. Can you give an example of where, as an ex-superintendent, where you would say the emergency is, where we would need to dip into the fund balance?
Well, I actually, y'all are gonna laugh, but in the district that y'all are familiar with, and it's the opposite problem, but it was still a problem. We would book it and never spend it. And, you know, there's a certain point where you have to look taxpayers in the eye and, you know, we generated that revenue to spend on kids, so where is the amount that we should not be booking any more of it? So we set policy, Mr. Macias, that's why I'm going on, you know, what we would do with excess fund balance. And this is just one example, Ms. Jones, that's what you asked for. I'm not saying it's right, it's the correct thing, but it's one example, but we took the minimum threshold and then we took an additional % for unanticipated issues. You know, I'm gonna call it that. That wasn't the exact language, and then we held that amount beyond what the state required. That had to be held. Then our decision was to utilize it primarily to help with plant maintenance and plant operation. Because we were passing bonds to help with new construction. Every time we built a new school, there was 57 more air conditioners we had to keep up with. And so we prioritized that stuff first. So we built up what we call an expenditure projection plan. So if we had quote unquote excess at the end of the year, we were basically buying AC units. I mean, just to try to keep that from being an emergency that hit us later where they all died at the same time. I'm not saying that's you asked for an example. That's not the example, that's just what we chose to do. But to Mr. Macias' point, that was agreed upon by the full board, 3 workshops.
But our mindset should really be, though, not to truly dip into that fund balance unless a true emergency.
I just think that's a discussion for the full board, and I think if there's a disagreement to adopt local policy or a resolution or something is a good way to take, I mean, at the end of the day, take a vote on what we want this to be, you know, just reaching consensus. We had to take a vote in my last district with what we would use those excess funds for. I guess I don't want to come off as just kind of being a smart aleck here, but like, give it a second to make sure we have it before we start spending it. Is all I'm saying. Like, let's just make sure that I would say let it be audited. You know, like let's make sure, I know we can estimate what the number is, but let's get it audited and make sure it really is what we think it is. Then have the conversation about how we might utilize it. And then I've got to just say the age-old, don't take one-time money and buy a reoccurring cost. That's why we chose air conditioning units.
Thank you, Dr. Gibson. I'd just like to also add, I think maybe we're missing the point just a little bit. If there is an emergency that needs to be taken care of, then absolutely that emergency needs to be brought to the board for discussion, because we can't put our students, our staff, or anybody in jeopardy or their safety. And so if that would occur, we would look at the time, we would look at how much money do we have accumulated in our fund balance, Right now, we have 50.6, I believe.
Estimated.
And it's 48 million is what, 75 days, so a little over. So if an emergency did come, we would be able to address that, but still not jeopardize our fund balance. But as Dr. Gibson said, that doesn't mean because we have a little bit over, we want to use it. We don't want to use it unless it is absolutely adverse.
That, Dr. Jackledge, the amount I was talking about is thank you for saying it the way you said it. The tier above what is required was basically for, like what would be perceived as life safety or true. That's why we were holding that additional amount. And it was assigned, as opposed to unassigned, but it was assigned to what the board would determine an emergency and life safety at that time. And we held it. So it's technically assigned, not unassigned, right? So not available. But it was the board agrees that, hey, we've got an emergency here, we've got to use that piece of it. So you said that a little bit better than I said, but that's what that amount is for.
That's all I have.
Thank you. Ms. Lee?
Dr. Gibson, this is just personally me for, for my understanding and learning stuff. For that 97%, is it, okay, the 97%, the budgeted that we have for that 97%, of course, amendment is not included on that one, right? So the remaining 3% that we have, is there any average, do we have any like average on our, like this previous maybe 2 years of how much do we have for the amendments that in the past that we had?
Yeah.
Are you asking, do we have an average amount of?
Like, what do we usually have, like amended, budget amendment for the last 2 years? I just want to understand, because the 3% remaining is at roughly around 7.4
million, yes, no.
And because I still want to like address that we have a 6 million deficit, so that's kind of like structure my question, I guess, for that remaining 3% for the last 2 years, like how much did we have for like budget amendment wise that we can cover? Did we cover?
So you're asking if we would end up with a surplus if we hit that 97%?
Yes.
Yes, we would have a surplus of about 1.2 million.
If other assumptions were made.
Yes, if there's no amendments done.
Yes.
Okay, but remember, we're not saying no amendments, our recommendation is limited. Because we know about the unforeseen things, or, especially if it's for a student or just to keep everybody safe. It would be 1.2 million. That would go back into the fund balance.
Okay.
Okay, I think I get what she's saying. She's wanting to know the past 2 years roughly, what was the total of the budget amendments that were brought back for approval? So she can kind of gauge with what money is, what we may be looking at.
Yeah,
To address our 6
we have,
million
there are different
deficit.
amounts. There are different amounts. There's an average that was calculated at 14 million, but these amendments there are various reasons. Emergencies, self-funded health insurance, pay raises, compensation. So there's like so many different reasons of that. So but some of them weren't urgent or unforeseen items. So that's why we're saying let's limit to just that. And then if we do a budget amendment, like I said, for something unforeseen, just like Dr. Gibson said, don't let it be a reoccurring cost, just something that one-time item.
I think with the 97%, you can be optimistic about that occurring, but I would never consider it as something that I would definitely book in my mind that it's a guarantee it's going to happen.
Yeah.
I think, and I don't think it's ever been shared, it's just been shared that just remember, you know, that's typical, that you budget for the worst winter in the history of San Antonio, and that does not occur, and so you've got some money left over from heating, you know, like that, and that's what that 3% is, basically.
My next one that I have here, it's just for that, I remember the self-funded insurance, because it was on my notes that, how far are you on that, because I know we're already halfway there.
Yeah, we're looking really good, currently,
Because
right?
I know you guys mentioned about we can also address that, whatever, is it right, like remaining, and we can.
Yeah, if, you know, even if, you know, I'm hoping, and it looks like we might come back with an extra 300,000, 500,000. It could be more, or it could be a little bit less. It all depends on the settlements and what they're agreeing and any appeals going on. That's gonna go back into our fund balance.
But for now, Ms. Martinez, do you have any ballpark, or where are we at right now? Because I know we're halfway there, it's 6 months already, so.
So what's in the cash flow right now, and then what's out there pending, it's about 300,000 that we'll have back.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for all of the hard work on, you know, balancing our budget. Thank you.
Ms. Noer?
I don't have any questions.
Ms. Stanford?
Yes. I kind of have a similar question that Ed had. So we're anticipating the 3% underspend, basically. That's been our track record. And I agree, I wouldn't want to add it back in like a for sure thing, but that equates to 7.4 million. So we're anticipating the fund balance to go to, I'm wondering, how do we apply that 3%? If we're gonna use it, if we're gonna count on it, do we apply it as we go, or do we apply it at the end of the year, the end of the fiscal year?
The end of the year, when we begin, when the audit is final for next audit, when we get audited 26, 27, and it's final, that's when we will have that. So right now, we don't have it, but we're gonna eventually have it. We just need to get there.
So, Ms. Stanford, if I could, I want to kind of clarify something. So there is something that we can do to kind of keep you updated on that. So obviously, we are looking at adopting the budget with the budget deficit. And obviously, there is still work to do, and we are still continuing to do that. So with the recent changes in the laws, we are required to kind of draw a line in the sand and say, here's the budget as best as we can get it. And to one of the points that was made this evening about, you know, we should be creating the budget as closely to what we have, you know, and what the district needs are. And so the budget includes all the employees that we currently have as of that day that we know have signed contracts to return to us, including some vacancies that exist in the district that we know would need to be filled. There are certain things that just have to be there, and it includes that in here, and that's part of that 6 million. However, at the same time, it is a work in progress. As people, even since the time we completed this, we have had individuals who have resigned from the district. And some of those are positions that we would not need to replace as we continue to work towards all of the plans that we have continued to do that. So one of the things that we have talked about going forward is providing you an update each month, kind of where we are on this position management piece, and how we are working to whittle down the 6.1. Now, in terms of what your audited financials look like at the end of the year, Ms. Martinez is exactly correct. I mean, your audit is what's going to show you the finals at the end of the year, but we are going to be able to provide you updates as we go along as to how we are doing this. This also includes us looking at costs that we are spending in our departments as we get into the year. We need to look very closely at some of our spending. And although we have budgeted for it now, there are certain things that we budgeted for because we have budgeted for it in the past that we are continuing to look at to say, you know, maybe we don't need to spend as much in that area, and to reduce some costs there, because we do end up with cost savings in our operational budgets every year, and we know that can come back. But then the main piece is that position control. And I do want to say a shout out to the HR staff and the finance staff, because for the last week and a half, both parties have sat at a table and have looked line by line to make sure that we are building position management in this district, so that going forward, as we build our budgets, we're building our budgets on the full-time equivalents versus just building our budget based on a person in a chair. And I know that's a hard concept to think about, that a person in a chair doesn't equal to a FTE, but it really doesn't work that way, and you can see that when the state does their computations. The district is not able to produce an FTE report live right now because we haven't tracked our staff in that way. And with the work that HR and finance are doing together, we are building that module so that going forward, we can track that and give you a better idea, and then we can provide you with those reports monthly on how we are doing towards that 6%.
If 100% represents, you've got position control fully built, where are you right now? We started it a year ago, I would say.
So in terms of on paper, we have how the position control should look. We can't actually begin to build that. We can't build it into our financial management system or our human resources system until after we adopt the budget and roll over into next year. In fact, the module has always been there. When we adopted Skyward originally, they said, are you ready to build your FTE model? And we said, well, Judson doesn't use an FTE model, so it's never actually been used. So we are working through that process. So as we go through the move into this budget, we are going to build those FTE counts by building, by department, so that we know how many full-time equivalents we have in each area. So that as we begin to hire folks, it kind of gives us an alarm bell to say, hey, wait, you're about to hire someone, but it's over your FTE account. Let's take a look at the budget. Let's take a look at our student numbers. Let's take a look how this fits into your overall budget.
But you arguably, once the switch is about to be flipped, and then once you guys operational.
That's correct, and then it'll take us a month or so to kind of work through that, get it built into Skyward, and then begin to use that. And our HR department is actually really excited about that fact, because it gives us additional information about what our employees, where they fit into the bigger piece, and then it helps on the financial side as well.
That's good stuff.
So I take it something like a CFO is in that 6.1, okay. Yes, right. So I'm just curious if we're kind of counting on that 3%, or maybe we're not, but wouldn't it reflect in the 2027 fund balance? Because our fund balance is shown lower at the end of 2027.
Well, Ms. Benford, that's because we're just getting the budgeted revenues with the budgeted expenditure and just subtracting that. So it gives us that 6.1 million, so we get our unaudited amount as of July 1st, 2026 of 50.6 million, and subtracting the 6.1, so we give you that.
Yeah, you don't get to count it unless you actually do it.
Yeah.
That's what she's, right.
That piece you would see at the end of the year, yes, ma'am. So as we go through the year and we give these reports and kind of show you how we're working through on the payroll basis on staff and based on budget, that's going to give you an idea of how that 6.1 is being reduced along the way, and you can begin to add those numbers back to that 44, if that makes sense. Not officially, but to give us an idea of where we stand in the budget.
Are we counting on that 3%? Are we factoring that into our budget? Because I would assume if we are, then we would add it to the fund balance. Or is that kind of an invisible number that we're just setting off to the side and saying we hope that will offset the deficit of 6?
It's an invisible aspiration that we need to hit.
Right.
But we can't factor it in right now.
Correct.
Dr. J wanted to say something.
Yeah.
This is where we're at, that 6.1 million that we're left after the $29 million deficit we've already cut out, okay, from the 35. So that leaves us with the 6.1. Okay, the 3% that is left over from the 97% we're going to run our budget with is 7.4 million.
Yeah.
The $6.1 million deficit that is sitting there right now is a combination of overstaffed still and expenses. And so as we move forward with position management, we find out that the people resign, and those positions that we have we don't need those positions to still support our school. That knocks down the 6.1 million. At the same time, that $7.4 million from the 3%, think about it, every month we get our payments. So every month, part of that 7.4 is going to knock down that deficit as well. And so at the end of the year, depending on how many positions that we didn't fill, we didn't replace, compared to how much money we had to spend on the 7.4 to address the 6.1 deficit, will leave us with a positive income at the end. And so that's why we can tell you, using 7.4 and cutting down vacancies, that's like a double whammy against the 6.1. And so that 6.1 will be eliminated throughout the year, depending on either by the end of the year for sure or sooner. Where you're seeing the $44 million in the fund balance for next year, that's if we didn't do anything. And that we just subtracted the $6 million from the 50.
Oh, okay,
So we are doing something about it, and so as Ms. or Dr. Goss stated, every month we'll be building that back up and erasing that $6 million from the deficit.
so it sounds like you're saying we are gonna count that 3% as we go.
Yes.
We are, okay.
As part of eliminating the budget, the 6.1.
So we're not saying two different things. I'm just
Okay.
saying you cannot count it until you have it.
So every month we get.
So we
on
can
the budget.
count it monthly.
You
It'll
can
be factored in.
anticipate it and factor it in, but you can't put it on this piece of paper until you have it in your hand.
Yeah, so that'd be a monthly thing.
Correct.
Like, absolutely, I'm getting my check next month, I'm gonna be able to buy that. But I can't buy it yet,
Yeah,
because I don't have a
okay.
check.
Right.
Okay, and did I hear you to say that we're still considered overstaffed?
Yes.
Well, Dr. Jackledge, I knew that. I was gonna jump in. So if you remember, you went from 91, we all agreed 91%. You know, we started looking at averages, and I think that helped us. And then today we ran it, and that was kind of a fun exercise. We're around 85%, right? Like we ran the calculations. And so now that's huge to think. You think about this from April without financial exigency, just Google school district budgets and just see what pops up all over the state, right? That financial exigency. Okay, so you made a big jump from 91 down to 85. What at the beginning I said that the average that you're probably trying to target is around 82 or 83%. And so that delta between the 85 we're at now, which was a huge jump to get from 91 to 85, could be, you know, that remaining last little bit of over what a typical budget. But I almost hate to use the word overstaffed. That's why I heard it also, because you were overstaffed when we started. You're really close to not being overstaffed now. I'll just say that.
Okay, because I was gonna ask if we are overstaffed, by what percentage? Is it like 1% that we?
Well, I think it could be just the difference between
85 and 85.
Yeah, what would
85
that?
and 84, because weren't we aiming at 84?
We did talk about 84, yes.
And we hit 85?
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am, and then also, that's why the position management is so important. And Dr. Goss, if you want to share, that's why we're working so hard to get that, so
Yes,
we can
and
get the correct number.
The position management is extremely important, and that's why I mentioned the HR staff, because they have really been working to make sure that with each staff member, we have the appropriate coding and the appropriate alignment in those pieces, because we did find a lot of discrepancies and errors in the system, and making sure that that alignment is there so that we're matching that to the FTE counts and that it's matching to our budget. We do have areas where I wish, in some cases, everybody had all the same certifications, and then everybody could fill all the positions that you know we may have, you know, in certain areas that we have needs. That's why when we say, we don't want to really say we're overstaffed per se, but we're not at the 84%. But at the same time, we still have some needs and some certification areas that are going to be needed, and we're working to kind of fill those. So in looking at that, with each person that is transferred, hired, fills a classroom spot, or a vacancy that we have in the district, we really have to look at that carefully in that position management and say, do we have the capacity to, does it fit within? We divided it into those categories of saying these are our FTE categories, and we're going to reduce each category by those percentages. In some of those categories, we have hit it on the nose. But then there's others that, we're almost there. We're within that 1%, that 1 to 1.5% from hitting those marks. But at the same time, we value our employees that have stayed with us. And that was one of the commitments that we made also when we consolidated the campuses, that the people that are best people and the people that wanted to be in Judson ISD, we were going to preserve that. And we have been able to do that and still get to the 85. And we will continue to move forward with our staffing and that position control piece.
So we're going to continue to close out positions. Did I hear that? We're not done.
That is correct. That is correct. Correct. Especially in cases where we don't have the student enrollment for the need for that. And that may mean that we have lower student enrollment at one campus, but all of a sudden the other campus has more, so it's a transfer. We would have to, transfer. And we see that every year around September anyway. I think our teachers are very accustomed to when we start to level classes and see where our students show up. And we have built our FTEs and this based on the student enrollment that the district is expecting.
For this coming year.
For this next coming year.
Where there was a pattern prior to building it on, too much of an optimistic number. So, but anyway, this one took so that, on the budget, our hands were kind of tied right off the bat because we took the lower student, but I would rather deal with that reality tonight than in 6 months. That we projected it to be lower, than find out that it's lower in December and have to come back to you and say, we over projected revenue. That's really important, I think, for tonight. This is the first time in 4 years that the district took a lower student projection for revenue. Is that fair to say? So you had that kind of working against you before, because during the year you weren't getting as many kids as you thought you were going to get, and it was costing you revenue during the year. This year, this budget went ahead and calculated that lower student number. Makes it harder to balance this. That may be part of what the 6 million is, because we picked a lower revenue.
Well, we'll be careful in closing out positions, I assume.
Yes, ma'am.
Very thoughtful about what we're ending. And, speaking of revenue, Dr. Gibson, we had for a couple years in a row a 1.03 tax base, or tax rate.
Yes. And
for the last 2 years, last year and then this year, we've dropped to 0.97. So we're like right at the bottom of everyone, and I just think it's important to point this out. Income-wise, we're at the bottom of the list in the entire area. I mean, like, we might be one above, but we're in the very, very bottom for a district of our size. And I know we're talking about a Vader at some point, and I think it's important to just mention right now that our revenue is lower than it should be too.
Yes, ma'am.
And hopefully that can be corrected too. That'll help with the overall picture.
When I look at the budget overview page, and I was just doing quick math a while ago, not that the board meeting and all the consent agenda items weren't interesting to me, but I've facilitated 812 board meetings in my career, and I just started doing math on this. Your investment in function 11 and 12 is strong. If you, as a percentage of the total, I agree with you. We would love to have more revenue, but you want function 11 and 12 to be around 55%. I just did quick math back there, and I think it's around 61.
Okay.
Do you see what? So you're of the resources available to you, you are putting them to the classroom. I don't see anything there that makes me go, wow. In fact, y'all are investing heavily in the classroom. I can look at that and I can tell you that.
That's good.
Yeah.
And thank you. That's all I had. And thank you all for the work you've done.
I do
do have just a couple of quick questions. First one, just, and I'm not even sure if you guys can do this, but I think it would just be good for everybody to know. Would we be able to get, I guess, an idea of how much we were spending in, I guess, emergency amendments over the last couple of years, maybe 3 years or something of that nature?
I can get it.
Yeah, obviously not right now because I didn't ask prior to this, but I just think it would be a really good idea if we had some kind of number that we may or may not be expecting, because I get it, right now we're on a tight budget, we're walking a very fine line. So any kind of projections or any kind of ideas that we can have ahead of time, obviously we're not gonna hold you guys strictly to that because it was just a projection. But if we can get something like that, that'd be great. My second question would be, how confident are you that we're going to be able to maintain this cost containment? Because I know that in the past, we've had problems with spending.
We are very confident after putting everything into place.
I would say I'm very confident that we can do the hard work. However, in saying that, I think that our staff is also dedicated to helping us get there as well and making those adjustments. However, that does mean that we are going to have to be very vigilant about things we want to add or things we want to do. I think, we need to look at creating that, we talked about at one point, creating that dream list of, hey, next year, when we're planning our budget and we have an excess, this is something that we would like to do. And so looking very closely at our spending, and that's why the position control is so important. And so, it is going to be sometimes looking very carefully at this allocation or that allocation. And, our principals, they are looking at it very hard. I know I had a principal today that it was a great thing to hear. They had been given their allocations and they were like, you know what, I don't think I need as many over here, so I'm gonna move them over here. And that is exactly what the allocations are for, to give that flexibility to say, this is how many I know my campus can have based on my students, and I want to invest over here a little bit more than I'm investing over here. And with that, that gives me the confidence that we can do this, as long as we all as a team, board and administration, really work to maintaining and sticking very closely to the budget. And so people may hear no for the first time in a while, on some of the purchases that they might want to do that is an extra. I think we need to think of, I know somebody mentioned their home budget, I think we really have to think about what do we absolutely have to have versus, and what is needed versus what we want. The need has to come before the want. And our needs are to meet what our students need.
That's so funny. I just wrote down, this is a need to have year, not a nice to have year. And I swear I just wrote that down right when she was evidently having the same thought.
And that's why also I thank our department heads and the principals. Even this year, they stepped in and only purchased what they needed. They were on top of it. So we're not only, position control is the most important because it's a big part of our budget, but the non-payroll, we are still focused on that, and we have we're working on it to get some extra dollars in for, our wellness package of next level prime, so, we're working on it, and that's why we're confident, very confident.
Okay, and obviously we're gonna be revisiting this pretty frequently throughout the year.
I wanted to, Dr. Gross just said something. She just said it, and you're kind of bringing it up again, and I just wanted to emphasize it. The key here is transparency and communication between the tactical team and the strategic team, going back to the original training. It just has to be nonstop, check in, just to make sure everybody's staying calibrated on the targets. And I know I'm repeating, but I feel like this is the time to repeat it one last time.
Sometimes it bears repeating.
Yes.
And also, I completely agree with Mr. Macias's idea. We can, I guess, just get together as a board for a board workshop or something of that nature where we can sit down and more or less define what we would consider an emergency, because there are emergencies. Chillers break down, the bus breaks down, and we need to have something. We can't just ignore those.
Yep.
So, yeah, that's something I guess we can work on along down the line.
I think
Dr.
it's a good
Gibson,
idea.
or, yeah, if we can get that started, that would be great. The last thing I really want to say is, I just kind of want to point backward at where we were in February. It has been a rough 5 months, and for our administration, for our principals, for everybody. Y'all have been running 24/7, and I know that you guys have. I know that you've been out in your offices, working on budgets, working on academics, till 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night. So I cannot express enough how much I want to thank every single person on this cabinet. You guys were presented with a Herculean task. It is insane that you guys were able to get this done in 5 months when it typically takes a year. So being able to come in running and just knock this out. I know that this is not a perfect balanced budget, and I know in a perfect world we would have loved to have that. But if we can maintain these positions, if we can just keep that cost containment mentality going until the end of this year, until the end of the next school year, we can bring us back to this balanced budget. We can start loading up our fund balance again, so we can be in a healthier position. So again, I just wanted to say thank you so much to Dr. Gosh, to Ms. Martinez, Dr. J. I know, and Dr. Gibson, you guys have done an amazing job with what you guys were presented in an amazingly short amount of time. So just thank you for everything you guys have done. It has not gone unnoticed, and it is not unappreciated. Did anybody else have any rebuttals or anything else they'd like to say?
Well, thank you, Ms. Petit, for being aligned in my thought process. I think the idea is that we know that there's time and a place when utilizing fund balance funding is appropriate. An emergency, we need to define what an emergency is. That's the first way for us to determine, hey, are we just spending haphazardly? But I do want to go back, because I want to make sure this is on the record. There was never any wasted spending. There was never any haphazardly throwing money out there just because we wanted to. The utilization of the fund balance was to maintain resources. The failure was the trust in Austin to pay for education. We can sit here and debate that, but the facts are the allotment did not go up the way it needed to. So we can't put our faith in our own government in Texas to fund education where it needs to be funded. So we now need to be, our thought process has to be different. You know, we maintained positions to the 11th hour until we knew we could not. And then we had devised a 2-year plan to start addressing the expenditures. I hate that a lot of our considered excess were personnel that were helping the district. There was no extra positions. They all had a role. But I also want to remind my community that of that $29.1 million that was referenced in terms of saving, $14 million of it was tied to the medical business. It was our insurance that we did not forecast appropriately, that due to everyone utilizing the insurance, it went over. A $14 million expense that is not reoccurring, is a one-time, because we certainly made adjustments so that we wouldn't get there again. So really, $15 million would be reoccurring, if you will, personnel. So I just don't like the impression that there was mismanagement going on. It wasn't. It was simply trying to maintain a workforce to meet student needs. But I do say, and I've not heard this, and I'll bring it up again, especially this budget cycle, we have now the ability to reuse campuses that are vacant. We have property, like the Pat Booker property that I want to sell. I want that in the books and I want it sold, because I believe that revenue could generate up to $10 million into our fund balance to help us, because with facility usage, that's another potential revenue source that we haven't even talked about for next year, depending on who we partner with or what we utilize there. But now it's time to start looking at facilities that have no usage for students. If we have to redefine our budgeting strategy, having excess buildings that do not serve students are unnecessary. especially with multiple campuses, not even being identified for reuse. So I see some positive opportunities to ensure that we're able to maintain our budget. And then some of the examples of things that I've asked for as amendments have been small in comparison. I've asked for an internal auditor. I think that's important for a district our size to have an internal auditor. I reiterate, Northside, Northeast, SAISD all have an internal audit function that we do not have. That would evaluate functionality and processes in addition to funding. And then the other thing that I've asked for in the past is extra police. We needed extra police officers, so we had an amendment a year or two ago that added more police officers to our workforce. And another example is I asked for SAT prep. So we ended up purchasing SAT prep and training for our students so that they could have the ability to perform better on college entrance exams. Those are smart expenditures, and those are creative ways. We're in a place where we can't be as creative this budget cycle, but going forward, we have to be responsive to community need and to the needs of our students. So I'm elated to see some thought process behind prioritizing what we may look at and bringing back to support students and their success. But again, you can't miss out. If you have a $14 million expenditure out of a $29.1 million deficit, that's a one-time deal, and it will never happen again. So just wanted to put that over. Thank you.
Anybody else have anything else to say? Okay, can I get a motion?
I move that we approve the proposed budget for the 26-27 fiscal year as presented.
Motion by Ms. Stanford and Ms. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Ms. Knoyer and Ms. Lee second. Okay, motion passes 6-0. And moving on to action item 5B, discussion and possible action regarding approval of technology purchases over $50,000 for the 2026 and 2027 school year.
I do not want to be at this table any longer, Dr. J.
Thank you, Dr. Gibson.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, Dr. Gibson.
Thanks.
Just pass that over to you. Did anybody have any questions on item B? Okay, can I get a motion for 5B?
I move that we approve technology purchases over $50,000 for the 26-27 school year.
Second. Okay, motion made by Ms. Knoyer, seconded by Ms. Stanford. And we'll proceed to vote. Okay, motion passes 6-0. And we move on to discussion and consideration of action items D, 5D, no, I'm sorry, 5C. Discussion and possible action regarding approval of maintenance purchases over $50,000 for the 2026-2027 school year. Do I have any questions or concerns looking at this way?
I was going to second your motion.
I don't know, I don't see anybody any questions. Nope. Okay, Ms. Stanford?
I'm just trying to understand the projected expense, and is there some reason the balance is expressed as a negative? Because it's different from all the others. So is there something that means, or it's not that we're really in a negative, right?
That's correct. It's not really that it's in the negative, it's the format that the maintenance department was using. It's more of an addition of, it's how they added up the amounts that they had in terms of the total that they were reaching. So the 362 in the balance is a negative 362 as if they were deducting it down the line. Instead of adding it up, they were deducting it down each line. So it just kind of reaches across. I'm not sure why they calculated it that way. Each director submitted theirs a little bit differently, and this was the format that they submitted. The dollar amounts that you see in the amount column Those are the dollar amounts that would actually be expended for those particular items. Balance piece is how they account for the $4.1 million that they are requesting.
And it's just kind of confusing.
It is a little confusing.
Because we ended up with a negative 2 million, so.
Right.
I can't figure out, it's that all the expenses are in the positive, and then the balance is a running negative.
Yes.
So are we going to overspend by 2 million in this budget?
No, ma'am. No, that will not happen. No, actually, their budget is larger than the 4.1 million. The 4.1 million is just representative of the items that they purchase on a reoccurring basis. If there was any new purchase or anything that exceeded $50,000, that is not a reoccurring purchase. It would not be on this particular sheet. It would come to you as a separate item that you see on a monthly board position.
So is it a $2 million plus? Do we end with a $2 million tip? So what are we actually?
No. It's my understanding from working with them that the amounts, if you were to add up all of the amounts into the amount, which I have not, that it would equal to the 4.1 million that they are asking for. I would have to do the calculation on the other one. Unfortunately, I am not the director of maintenance.
Can they try to clarify that?
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. I will absolutely do that.
Because I really don't know where we are then.
Okay. I will have them clarify that piece for you.
Are we okay with passing it, although it's?
Yeah, it's really a formatting piece. They are not able to spend more than the $4.1 million that is listed on there. And it is because each one of these sheets is actually independent of the other.
Oh, they're all negative.
They are all negative, and so if you start with the first amount on any one of the pages, the 707,364 and the 559,094. If you add those together, that equals 1 million. So if you look at, I think it's page 2, there's a contracted services in the amount of 707,364. You go to the balance, that's a negative number. If you take the amount of 707,364 and add it to the 559,094, that equals 1,266,000. If I then add the next line, which is the 1,281,000, that is 2,548,000, and then the 459,000 is the 3 million. So it's each one of those columns added up on each one of the individual sheets. But outside of each one of these pieces that they're saying they spend on the contracted services, they are not able to exceed $4.1 million.
Well, I would appreciate something maybe in Friday notes or something.
Sure.
Just it's.
I will absolutely have them reformat it. Because, and that way you can see it a little bit more clearly, because as you add these numbers up, you are correct. Each one of these sheets added together is in excess of the $4.1 million. And I think they're trying to show you all of the expenses that they could potentially have based on prior years expenditures, with the total amount that they are asking to not exceed is the 4.1.
So what are we passing here? We're passing an assurance that it's not what it looks like?
Ms. Stanford?
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Thank you. Maybe you can explain that a little bit
I
better.
apologize. It was a formatting issue. In the highlighted portion is where we place our budget number, and then the numbers that go down across the board subtracts from that number, and the budget number was not added, so that's why it came out negative. But I can fix that, and we can go over that. I can fix it, and I'll give it to you by
Right here,
Yeah.
Right here.
and then they would have subtracted down the line. The 4.1 should have been up there.
At the top.
And then when they.
It's the highlighted yellow.
And then it reduces it down the line.
But the number there, that it's just a negative instead of.
Correct.
So you're giving them the ability for the line items that are there to spend up to $4.1 million towards those expenditures. And these are projected expenditures based on prior years of spending. Some of those costs vary back and forth, and that is kind of consistent through all of these types of items.
Just something that shows where we're really sitting?
Yes, ma'am. I can fix that.
Okay.
And we will, and he'll get that over and we'll get that to you in Friday.
Absolutely.
Any other questions? And if not, can I get a motion?
I move that we approve the maintenance purchases over $50,000 for the 26-27 school year.
Okay, motion by Ms. Jones, seconded by Ms. Lee. And we will proceed to vote. Okay, motion passes 6-0. Moving on to 5D, discussion and possible action regarding approval of the Transportation Department purchases over $50,000 for the 2026-2027 school year. Do I have any questions? And if not, can I get a motion?
I move that we approve the Transportation Department purchases over $50,000 for the 2026-2027 school year.
Okay, motion made by Ms. Jones, seconded by Ms. Lee. And we will proceed to vote. Okay, motion passes 6-0. Moving on to 5E, discussion and possible action regarding approving child nutrition purchases over $50,000 for the 26-27 school year. Any questions? And if not, may I have a motion?
I move that we approve the child nutrition purchases over $50,000 for the 2026-2027 school year.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Jones, seconded by Ms. Knoyer. And we will proceed to vote. Okay, motion passes 6-0. Item 5F, discussion and possible action regarding the approval of special education purchases and services over $50,000 for the 26-27 school year. If there are no questions, can I get a motion?
I move that we approve the special education purchases / services over $50,000 for the 2026-2027 school year.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Ms. Jones, seconded by Ms. Stanford. And we will proceed to vote. Okay, motion passes 6-0. We are moving on to 5G, discussion and possible action regarding approval of athletic purchases over $50,000 for the 26-27 school year. Do I have any questions? If not, can I get a motion?
I move that we approve athletic purchases over $50,000 for the 26-27 school year.
Okay, motion made by Ms. Knoyer, seconded by Ms. Lee, and we will proceed to vote. Okay, motion passes 6-0. Moving on to 5H, discussion and possible action regarding the approval of fine arts purchases over $50,000 for the 26-27 school year. Do you have any questions? No. Can I get a motion?
I move that we approve the fine arts purchases over $50,000 for the 26-27 school year.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Ms. Stanford, seconded by Ms. Lee. And we will proceed to vote. Okay, motion passes 6-0. Moving on to item 5I. Discussion and possible action regarding approval of federal programs and grants contracts over $50,000 for the 26-27 school year. Do I have any questions? No? If I can get a motion then.
I move that we approve the federal grants, programs and grants contracts over $50,000 for the 26-27 school year.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Ms. Stanford, seconded by Ms. Knoyer. And we will proceed to vote. Ms. Lee? Okay, motion passes 6-0. Now, we're moving on to item 5J, discussion and take possible action regarding approval of a delegate and alternate for the 26th Texas Association of School Boards Delegate Assembly. And I feel like this is absolutely going to require a little bit of discussion. Is anybody volunteering possibly to take this particular role on? I will point out that I did do this last year.
I will voluntold.
You will volunteer.
I think it's Miss Jones and Miss Lee's turn. They haven't done it yet.
Okay, and how do you guys feel about that? It's just going in and voting as to who's going to be our delegate.
Well, I think the second person who can.
Yeah, that's a secondary.
Actually, but I do want to say that.
They're both gonna be on the floor.
Allowed to be on the floor. Last year when I did it, I had to sit out in the back and.
That's new this year. Both people will be on the floor, then they can confer and talk about. But it's setting the agenda for TASB. How do I want to say it? Advocacy.
To go to Austin, yeah.
The positions that TASB will take on items that might come before the legislature.
And you know, it might be a good idea to have somebody, like when I was there, rather have somebody there that's done this at least once and they can be the vote. And then either Ms. Jones or Ms. Lee can be the secondary. So would one of you two be willing to take that on just because?
Well, she's being the primary.
Oh, you're gonna be the
No,
primary?
I said Miss Jones and Miss Lee have not done this before, and so they should be the ones that do it now. I'm not going to be volunteering now.
Oh, I thought you said you were volunteering.
No, she's
Yeah,
I've
I've
done it like 3 or 4 times already.
Well, I'm just thinking that it would be a good idea to have somebody who's done it once be the actual vote, and then one of you two can be the secondary delegate. So, Ms. Stanford, have you done this before? Would you mind being the primary vote? And then would one of you two mind being the secondary?
It's so much fun.
This is for the Houston TASB. October 9th.
October 9th.
Oh, okay. Ms. Jones, would you be willing to be the secondary?
I really don't want to, but
Okay. Well, if you don't want to, I can also take over that.
I enjoy the other classes that are offered at the time rather than that chunk of time.
Yeah, same. Yeah, I can just be the secondary on that one. That's not a big deal.
So Ms. Stanford is the delegate, you're the alternate?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm not sure how to make the motion on this. Do I slip in the names of? Okay. So,
I move that we force.
I move that we approve the delegate of Ms. Stanford and the alternate Ms. Poteet for the 2026 Texas Association of School Boards Delegate Assembly. Do I have a second? Okay. Motion made by Ms. Poteet and second by Ms. Lee. And if we could proceed to vote. And Mr. Macis is not here. Can we? Oh, okay. And then can we do it again or? Okay. Motion passes 5-0. And we will move on to the discussion items reports. The policy update 127 affecting local policies, the first reading. This is the first reading of policy updates sent by TASB. Are there any questions or comments on the policy changes? This is going to be on the agenda for next month in July for approval. But did anybody have any questions now?
I had some amendments that or corrections that I emailed to Dr. Jackwish. They were really typos. I didn't feel they needed to be discussed in open, and he said he would take care of them. So that was my only contribution there.
Anything from you, Ms. Miller? I just didn't see down there. Okay, then moving on to 6B. Update on board training, conferences, events, board committees, updates, and board norms. We can start down here with Ms. Neuer.
So things kind of settled down a little bit after graduations. But I was there for all of the graduations. I want to call out just a couple of things that I did attend. the athletic department's attendance improvement movement at every high school. An opportunity was provided for students to look at their attendance and go above and beyond what is asked for by the state in terms of requirements to be part of an athletic team. And students who excel and overachieved at that were given a patch for their letterman's jacket. And I was able to go to all three of those particular ceremonies and to speak at one of them, and it's really gratifying to see that our athletic department is looking at making sure that our students come to school every day and that attendance is important. And they didn't get credit if they missed any part of the day. It wasn't just like, you could miss first period and still get credit for the day. If you weren't there for the whole day, you didn't get considered for that. And so they were looking for a much higher attendance rate than for the normal students. Mm-hmm. So I really appreciate that effort, and I congratulate all the students who met that. I also attended the substitute and volunteer recognition ceremony, and that was really nice. And then the Jeff Golf Tournament, which is a huge success every year, is in a different place for us this year, and I think it worked out real well. And I thank all of our supporters out there who purchased teams and supported the golf tournament and helped us so that we could move forward with the grants and scholarships and the ways that Jeff gives back to the district. So, thank you.
Ms. Stanford?
Yep, all the graduations, I want to congratulate all our graduates this year. It was a very exciting thing to go through and see all of them cross the stage. Very proud to have been a part of that. Went this week to Bonnie Anderson's presentation that she does every year with her bilingual PSL kids. It was the cutest thing you could ever imagine. And then the community brings in food and they all eat together. It is such a great experience. I wish they did a lot. I wish we had a lot more of that because it's such a community event. And my last note is that our ad hoc committee for bullying and conflict met. We actually agreed upon some changes to policy, and then had Dr. Jackosh take a look at that, and he had TASB take a look at that, and TASB has some questions about the additions, so that put a pause on everything. So we're going to be getting back to TASB to work through that. So just wanted to let you know where we were on our work with the committee.
Ms. Macias?
Seeing that I'm banned from everything, I didn't attend anything, but I will say that I did attend graduation in public space. I was able to see a lot of our graduates, not as many as I would have had I been at graduation. More importantly though, I'll try not to be bitter, but I am creating an ad hoc committee for District 4 to review finances and review legal bills. So if you're interested in that and you're in District 4, you can get in touch with me. And then lastly, I was remiss because I purposely stepped out last meeting making comments because again, I didn't have anywhere to go. But we were very happy that we held an appreciation party for Dr. Phillips. And that was something that we had there in Congress, and I think was very well needed. So I'll remain active, and each month when they ask me what I'm doing, I'll let you guys know what I'm doing.
Ms. Jones?
Attended the Summer Leadership Institute. We had that 2 weeks ago now. It was 2 days of trainings. And then also this past week, traveled with Ms. Poteet to Fort Worth to see a lot of school board members across the state of Texas graduate from the Leadership TASB group. And so that was nice to see that and meet a bunch of other board members across the state who went through training to help position their school districts to be better with policy and everything.
Ms. Lee?
Yes, just like Ms. Jones, I did attend the leadership training as well for the 2 days and learned a lot. And I also attended the bilingual classical music program for the first time, and I really enjoyed, watching especially the little kids. And just like in Stanford, I really hope that this would be kind of like, I don't know, like across, like more of this, because it's just really fun to watch and get together, the community, how strong, their support is, and there's like a lot of food in there too. And then, yes, I did attended the volunteer and substitute of the year, which part of the student success in their village is so nice to like see all these volunteers and gather in one place and celebrate them too. And I do also attend the with Ms. Knoyer, but only at Wagner though, for that Wagner athletic attendance, and it's just nice to see like all these dedicated students, that they're not only like, they're part of the team that could really, grow into. And I just want to highlight just one thing, because it was really the first time that Wagner made kind of like a history on fine arts, especially at music. So we did, the directors, from band, theater, and also choir, made the first time for the senior signing for like scholarships and which college they're attending to. And I just want to highlight one student where he had all the way like scholarship all through, for pursuing music. And yeah, I think that's it. And also all the graduations except for Judson High School. I'm sorry, because after Wagner, I have to, we had a little get together with my son because I have a senior, but I wanted to kind of congratulate all our seniors. Thank you.
Yeah, in the past month, I was with a lot of my fellow board members here. I did get to go to the Sub Volunteer Awards. However, I did lose my voice, so I wasn't able to speak and just say thank you to all of our substitute teachers, and just a special shout out to our volunteers, because I've been a volunteer, I'm a volunteer now, I'm a volunteer at Crestview, I'm volunteering on the board. It is so important for that community outreach, and those in-school PTA, PTO moms and dads that are out there just killing themselves for these schools. I just want to say thank you. It's amazing work that you guys do, and I wish I could have spoken to you guys at the meeting, but unfortunately, like I said, absolutely no voice. It was actually kind of funny. I was also able to go to the Hartman Elementary with Bonnie Anderson and those little kids, and man, it reminds you why we're sitting here. They're just so cute. There's nothing else you can do but say, oh my God, I'm pretty sure my kids were never this small as a pre-K or a kindergartner. And these are tiny little kids that you just want to go and wrap yourselves around and just re-energize yourself with. So that was amazing. And if she wanted to have another 4 more, I would be there front row and center, because I loved every minute of it. Also went to the SLI here in San Antonio, and we also made it up to Fort Worth to see Monica graduate, or I'm sorry, Miss Ryan graduate from the leadership TASB. And it was again great to always hear the speakers from TASB. They're always really informative, but it was also just nice to go out and support a colleague. If nobody else has anything else, I guess what we can do is move on to closed session. So the board will now adjourn into closed session pursuant to the following sections of the Texas Open Meeting Act. Pursuant to the Texas Government Code, section 551.074, discussing personnel, the personnel report, and updates including new hires, resignations, and administrative appointments, including the Director of Fine Arts, and Section 7B, pursuant to Texas Government Code, Section 551.071, legal consultation with attorney regarding board decision-making process. The time is now 8:21. And we are now in closed session.
Thank you.
I don't know yet, maybe.
Thank you.